Alex McMillan was over the moon. He took his cell phone out of his pocket and called home to advise his wife that his 2-day meeting in San Francisco had been canceled, and he would not be attending his 5:30 p.m. flight. After all, he was returning to the office to hand off some paperwork and planned to be home in about 3 hours. In truth, the 2-day encounter was a job interview. He had learned about a vacancy for the post of division president of a major corporation that had recently relocated one of its divisions to Chicago. Everything he knew about Chappell Electronics indicated that working there would be excellent, and the regional division's office was close enough to his home that his commute would not be any longer than it was currently. Chappell manufactures electronic gadgets, such as video surveillance equipment and other commonly used electronics. The post was an excellent fit for his skill set, and his boss and buddy, Michael Kraft, had strongly recommended him to the organization. Michael had close personal relationships with numerous high-ranking members of the Chappell and had helped facilitate the introduction. Michael was disappointed to see Alex depart, but he realized he couldn't stop him and offered him a glowing recommendation. Michael was held in such high respect that the interview was only conducted to comply with Chappell's formal protocol. According to Michael, the trip was postponed because they had arranged to meet him in the division offices in Chicago rather than the corporate headquarters in San Francisco. They were planning to offer him the position immediately away. This surprised Alex, but the corporation had been tracking his growth for several years, and out of respect for his employer, had refrained from making a direct offer previously. They hadn't given him an official offer yet, but that would be resolved when he met with them the next day. Chappell had outlined a generous pay and benefits package that made Alex's head spin, no matter where his offer fell within that range. He was confident that if everything went as planned, their standard of living would be greatly improved. Alex would begin the work in 3 weeks. When he arrived in the office, Michael was already waiting for him, a big smile on his face. He congratulated Alex warmly. "If anyone deserves it, it's you. Congratulations." Apparently, Michael's buddies had already contacted to inform him that Alex had taken the position. Alex answered, "Come on, Michael. They have not even offered me an official offer yet. You'll have to hold off on the congratulations, but thank you nonetheless." Alex was deeply moved by Michael's support and informed him that Chappell Electronics had notified him that the individual hired for the role will be required to begin work in 3 weeks. Alex stated that if he were offered the role, he would accept it. Michael said, "I knew this was going to happen, so to be honest, I have already chosen your replacement. It's in Colton, and she's perfectly qualified to take over for you beginning tomorrow. You are well aware of this, as you have taught her everything she knows." Alex grinned, having joined his team 2 years ago, and as Michael stated, she was more than capable of replacing him. She had even filled in for Alex on a few occasions when he went on lengthy vacation. He was overjoyed with Michael's decision and truly delighted for him. She deserved the promotion and would surely thrive in the position. "Spend this week getting up to speed on all of your ongoing initiatives," Michael advised. "Then take the remaining 2 weeks off. You'll be extremely busy as soon as you open a Chappell. You will miss your comfortable employment here. Also, Alex, their benefit package is massive. They understand what they are getting with you and are willing to pay well for it. They'll pay for whatever you may possibly want." When Alex returned home, he saw that his wife's car was not in the garage. He recalled that she was probably still at work and would be home shortly, entering the kitchen. He set his bag on the floor and went over to the refrigerator to get a beer. He looked into the dining room and noticed that his wife had set the table with 2 place settings of their finest china and crystal, as well as candles, napkins, holders, and other beautiful decorations. He smiled to himself, thinking she was preparing a special dinner for him when he got home, from his interviews. As he approached their bedroom, he noticed the answering machine's blinking light. They had 2 messages. The first message was one he had left previously. When he heard the second message, he went into shock. "Hey, this is Larry. I just wanted to let you know that I intend to come on time about 6:30 p.m. I cannot wait to hold you again. Every time I think of the last time we were together, I cannot get that out of my thoughts. I'm going to make this night unforgettable. See you soon, baby. Be prepared for me." Alex could not believe what he'd just heard. He recognized the voice. Larry. The message came from Larry Evandale, one of his wives, Jody's ex-boyfriends. Larry dated Jody in high school, but Alex eventually won her over and married her. Larry was now a prominent lawyer in Texas, and as far as Alex knew, while still unmarried at the time, he had never had reason to doubt Jody's love or allegiance. He mumbled under his breath, "How could that deceitful woman do this to me?" When Alex remembered the dining table prepared for a romantic dinner, his resentment escalated to hatred. When Jody's mother died, each of her 4 children inherited 2 sets of china crystal silverware and napkins with beautiful silver napkin rings as keepsakes. Jody treasured these goods and only used them on rare occasions. He thought to himself, "Well, from now on, we'll see how special this occasion truly is." He went into his workshop and got a sledgehammer. Returning to the dining room, he began smashing all of the china and crystal. He also bent the dining table and napkin holders, which were likely beyond repair. He ripped the napkins in half and laid them on top of the smashed glassware. Then he took off his wedding band, flattened it with the hammer, and placed it on one of the torn tablecloths. Alex took out his cell phone and phoned his home number. "Jody, according to the message I received a few minutes ago, this is Alex. I'm guessing you had a pretty wonderful supper planned with Larry tonight, but as you may have noticed, I kind of wrecked it for you two. Then again, what is it in comparison to how you ruined our marriage? See you around. Goodbye." After that, Alex picked up his luggage off the kitchen floor and went to his car. He drove straight to O'Hare Airport and called to check on the arrival of flights from DFW, Texas. There were just a few flights, United 5412 and Delta 1253. That could have gotten Larry to the city in time to arrive at Alex's residence by 6:30 p.m. Alex called United Airlines and requested to speak with a customer care agent. He asked, "Is Larry Evandale on a flight?" United 5412 arrives from DFW. Regardless of how the customer service worker responded, Alex believed he could figure out which flight Larry was on. If they replied, "No, sir, there is no Larry Evandale on this plane," he would know Larry was on Delta Flight 1, 2, 5, 3. But if they said, "Sir, I can't reveal that information to you," he would think Larry was on United. Larry was on the Delta aircraft, and Alex waited near the gate while passengers exited. When Larry stepped out, Alex approached him from behind and talked in a furious tone. "Larry, don't even consider going to my house tonight. If you do, I will find and kill you. Your best option would be to simply hop back on a plane to Texas. Yes, that would be the best decision you could make." Larry was surprised and speechless as Alex approached him. He couldn't understand how Alex had known he'd be there at that moment and couldn't think of anything to say. When Alex walked away, Larry regained his calm and exclaimed, "But Alex, it's not what you think." It was already too late, as Alex had vanished into the crowd and had not heard a thing. Larry had known Alex since high school and college, and he knew he could be a rough bastard when he wanted to be. "Damn," Larry mumbled to himself. "If I stay around here, I might get shot. She isn't worth it." He swiftly made up his mind, took out his cell phone and called to cancel the business meeting he had planned for the next day. He then walked over to the next service desk and reserved the next flight back to Dallas. Larry's flight was leaving in 2 hours, so he went to the bar for a much-needed drink or 3 or 4. By the time he boarded his aircraft back to Dallas, he was buzzed but grateful to be alive. He assumed he'd meet another, less risky woman back in Dallas. Approximately 5:30 p.m., Patricia Hunt Davenport. Trish opened the door and entered the house, headed straight toward the kitchen. She noticed the flickering light on the answering machine and was expecting a message from Larry. "Press the play button." Rather than a message from Larry, it was the one Alex had left on the machine just before leaving. Jody. Alex, according to the message I received a few minutes ago, I'm assuming you have a very wonderful meal planned with Larry tonight. However, as you may have seen, I also spoiled it for you, but what is that? Compared to how you destroyed our marriage? See you around. Goodbye. Trish was stunned. How did Alex receive Larry's message? He was due to take a flight to San Francisco. She thought, oh my God. Alex believes it's Jody who is meeting Larry. Oh no, this is bad. Then she witnessed the devastation in the dining room and her panic increased. Trish lives with her sister, Jody Hunt. McMillan answered, oh my God, Jody, we have a massive problem. Alex arrived home and received Larry's note. He destroyed the china and crystal, destroying the entire dining room, including the festive table you had set up for me. Get the kids into the car and come here. Oh, God. Jody, I am very sorry this happened. Trish Davenport, as it turned out, was the married woman looking for some romance and an adulterous liaison with Larry Evandale. The husband, Kyle Davenport, was out of town on business. So Jody had planned to look after the children while Trish had her little rendezvous with Larry. Trish was aware that Carl worked long hours while he was away and was unlikely to phone her before 8 p.m., perhaps later, allowing her to spend many hours with Larry. But now that Alex had found out what was going on, the entire scheme had crumbled. About 5 minutes after hanging up, Jody arrived with her 6-month-old twins in their car seats. They lived only a few blocks apart, so all she had to do was gather the kids and drive there. As soon as Jody walked in the door, Trish sensed the panic in her expression. Jody raced over to her, exclaiming, "Oh my God, Trish, what am I going to do?" How did this occur? Now Alex believes I'm having an affair. This is entirely my fault. Jody, Trish admitted, I've been overwhelmed since the twins were born, and all I wanted was to feel alive and desirable again. When Carl told me he had to leave town, I believe something within me cracked, and I lost touch with reality. I called Larry to ask if he could come over, and you know the rest. Oh, God. Jody, I cannot believe this is happening. The two young women listened to all 3 messages from the answering machine. The first came from Alex, and the second from Larry, leaving no doubt about his intentions, and Alex's final one. Again. When they played Larry's message, they realized exactly why Alex had destroyed everything and left the message he did. However, no identities were mentioned. Larry's message left no doubt that he intended to have an intimate meeting with the woman he was phoning. The first thing they needed to do was contact Alex and persuade him that Jody had not had an affair. The two ladies were certain that they could work things out with Alex and begged him to give Trish a chance to heal the harm she had caused to her own marriage. Alex had checked into the Hyatt Hotel in Oakbrook. He needed time to contemplate things and realized he couldn't return home. The Hyatt had a decent restaurant and lounge, so he ate a light meal before going to the lounge for a drink. After his second drink, he felt it was better to carry a bottle up to his room. He asked the bartender if he could have a bottle of scotch delivered to his room, and he was told that it could be done. Alex settled into his room and sat on the sofa, a drink of whiskey in hand. He knew he had missed a few calls that had gone to voicemail, so he checked his cell phone and found 3 messages. The first one came from Trish, his sister-in-law, and Jody's sister, Alex. I just went to your house, saw the mess in the dining room, and heard the messages on your answering machine. Oh my God, Alex, you've made a mistake, and I have no idea what to do. Jody wasn't meant to meet Larry at your house. I was. She was at my house taking care of the twins. Oh, God. Alex, this is an error. Please contact me or Jody, and we will explain everything. Jody was not cheating on you. That was me. Please call back. Jody sent the second message, which essentially said the same thing. Alex, darling, there has been a dreadful mistake. Baby, I'm so sorry. You suspected I was cheating on you. That must have been terrible for you. But love, that was all set up at our house, And Trish was the one who met Larry while I was babysitting the twins. Please call or come home so that we can discuss. You will see how much I love you and how sorry I am for the agony this has caused you." The third message came from Jody Alex McMillan. This was a tremendous error and misunderstanding. "Come home so we can fix things before you act rashly. You know I adore you." Alex took out his cell phone, chose his wife's number from his contact list, and texted her. "I received the texts from you and your sister, and I understand what you're saying, but I'll need a few days to think it over. I will call you tomorrow night." He was still furious, but he felt slightly better about the situation. He couldn't understand why they had planned this at his residence. Despite the fact that the twins were only 6 months old, he understood what they were attempting to communicate. He intended to verify a few things for himself. A few seconds later, his phone buzzed, notifying him of a text message. It came from Jody. "Alex, I want you to come home. Please do not remain away from me, baby. I need you here. Please." Alex quickly responded, "No." "Jody, I need to figure this out. I will call you tomorrow night." He turned off his phone and had a few more beers before collapsing into bed and falling asleep. The next thing he knew, sunshine was rushing through the windows and striking him squarely in the face. He reluctantly got up and drew the drapes to cover the light. It was killing him, and he was already unhappy enough. Alex looked at the clock on the nightstand and noticed that it was 8:30 a.m. He wasn't in a good mood, but he couldn't stop laughing at the notion of how bad it would have been if his interview had been planned for the morning rather than 2 p.m. He knew he still had a full schedule, so he called home to see if Jody had left for work. She did not answer his call, so he believed she had already left. Alex exited his hotel room and rode the elevator to the garage. He got in his car and drove to an electronics store, where he bought a few things before returning home. As he drove, he thought, "While I'm at it, I might as well try out some Chappelle Electronics products." When he returned home, he was relieved that no one was present. He hurriedly gathered some clothes and personal stuff for the next few days and packed them into his car, where he spent time putting bugs in the phones, kitchen, and bedroom. In addition, each room has cameras installed. He installed the transmitter in the basement workshop. Jody would never realize it. Yet he would be able to access all of the data via his laptop or cell phone. Once everything was in place, he was confident that everything would run well. Alex took a shower and dressed for the interview. He got to Chappelle Electronics around 10 minutes early and waited for the interview to begin. As expected, the interview went quite well, and he was offered the position. The income and compensation package they offered was excellent. They essentially gave him the flexibility to set his own wage. Who does this? Alex knew they really wanted him on board. He stated, "I accept the position pending final agreement on the benefits package between us. The benefits are fantastic and I see no need for any modifications. However, the compensation requires some tweaking." Joe Sanford, his new supervisor, looked astonished and replied, "Alex, we're providing nearly double your current income. What else requires adjustment?" Alex chuckled quietly, and Joe's face darkened significantly as he became agitated. Alex calmed him, adding, "Joe, I'll take less. Give me a $50,000 raise over my prior salary, and let's create a performance-based incentive structure that allows me to earn more than you're offering. If I perform a good job in addition to the reward scheme, I'd prefer a specific bonus if all of the targets are reached. What are your thoughts? Does that sound reasonable?" Joe grinned and said Michael was correct. "You are exactly the person we need in this role. You have a bargain, Alex. We'll assess our current situation and our goals together, and I am convinced that the board will approve the incentive and bonus programs. We'll finalize the figures later, if that's okay with you." Following the interview and following discussions, Alex and Joe dined at Morton's Steakhouse. Later, Alex returned to his hotel to think on his home situation. Feeling weary, he decided to wait until the morning to check the surveillance tape he had set up prior to the interview. When the morning sunlight reached his face, Alex stood up and prepared for the day ahead. He ordered breakfast delivered to his room and began watching the CCTV footage from the previous 24 hours. He listened to a few phone calls unrelated to the topic before coming across one from Jody to Larry Evandale. Larry, I apologize for everything that went wrong. Alex was meant to fly to San Francisco, but the trip was canceled. Larry responded, but the only flight he was on was directly in front of me when I got off the airplane. I understand Alex challenged you, but what else do you expect him to do in this situation? Well, sweetie, no piece of ass is worth dying over. But I was looking forward to having you both. Larry will have to put this all behind him for the time being. I know we were going to spend the night together after Trish left, but I need to convince Alex that you were only meeting with Trish and not with me. 2. Okay, but I will call you next time. I hope to visit Chicago and see if we can meet. Then, just make sure Alex doesn't find out next time. Yes, call me next time. And I was disappointed, Larry. I was really looking forward to seeing you again, and we'll see what we can do in the future. During this conversation, Alex's blood was boiling from lying and cheating. She has been unfaithful to me and will do so again. I was dubious about Trish and Larry's meeting in our house. He spoke aloud. He paused, poured himself a glass of whiskey, and sat down. The next call he heard was from Jody to Trish. Trish, get the kids into the car and come over. We need to sit down and figure out how to handle things so that no one gets wounded. Come now, and please hurry. There were a few unrelated calls following that. Then, early in the morning, Jody called her employer to request the day off. Alex moved to the live feed of the cameras and audio in the house. He noticed Jody cleaning up the mess he had created in the dining room. She was visibly disturbed by the destruction of her mother's valuables. There was no way to fix the china or crystal. He had crushed everything into tiny fragments, no bigger than an inch. The silver was bent beyond repair, and the napkins had been split in half. There was nothing we could do about it. He watched Jody sob as she threw the broken pieces in the trash. He saw her pick up his flattened wedding ring, and her cries became louder. She did not toss it away. Instead, she clutched it in her hands as if it were a valuable relic. Then she softly put it against her heart before slowly slipping it into her pocket. He overheard her sigh. Oh, what did I do? I had to persuade him that it was simply a trick. I could not live without him. What was I thinking? I told Larry I'd meet him another time. After finishing the cleanup in the dining area, Jody went to the living room, sat in his chair, and started crying. He observed her for a long before Trish came. Jody replied, Trish, we need to persuade Alex that it was only you who had an affair with Larry. If he believes it was me, my marriage is done. He will divorce me in an instant if he suspects I was involved. And then you'll be in trouble too, since Carl will become suspicious if Alex and I divorce. You're correct, Jody, Trish responded. But how can I save my marriage? If Carl becomes suspicious, he may order a DNA test for the twins, and I'll be absolutely screwed. He'll discover the twins aren't his, and my marriage will break apart. What are we planning to do? As I mentioned, Jody responded, we have to convince him it was you, and then beg him not to tell Carl. We need to appeal to his softer side so that he does not end your marriage. Beg him and pledge to never make this mistake again. Oh, damn it, Jody. I will not make this mistake again. This whole situation scares me, and I absolutely adore Carl. Whatever it takes, we will accomplish it. Convince Alex and beg him not to tell Carl. They both sat silently for a long, absorbed in meditation, as Alex continued to observe them. Finally, Jody spoke again. Damn it. Why did we all have to be like Mom? She cheated on her father, and now you and I have cheated on our husbands. Kay and Bobby have been cheating on their partners for years. I believe the next time we all get together, we should make a commitment to never cheat again. Trish inquired, despite the fact that her mother had never stopped till her death. How many times did you cheat on Alex? I have only cheated on Carl twice, both times with Larry. This would have been number 3. The second time I cheated, I became pregnant with twins, and it was the final time. I will never cheat on Carl again. Alex was very interested in Jody's response. Well, I suppose I've cheated a few times. Twice with Larry, and a few times with guys who approached me in pubs while Alex was away. I despised sitting at home alone. So I go out, have several people buy me drinks, and flirt a little. I believe I went too far a couple times, and the next thing I knew, I was lying on my back, legs spread. I don't regret it, although there were no genuine intentions at the time. I simply didn't want to be alone. Trish expressed no plans. Jody, that is priceless. You go to a bar, flirt, let males buy you drinks, and then say you had no intention of sleeping with them. You have actually made me laugh. Jody smiled. Okay, you're correct. But it didn't go as well with them as it did with Larry. Those instances happened in the heat of the moment, but Larry and I planned it ahead of time. Alex listened and observed their chat until Trish took the twins and left. The conversation centered on how they would persuade him that Trish was guilty or not Jody, and how they planned to beg him to give Trish another chance. Finally, Trish left, and Jody retired to bed. Alex watched Jody get ready for bed, and as she lay down, he heard her speak through her cries. I need to change this. I really can't lose him. Alex turned everything off. There were more recorded phone calls and films to check, but his heart couldn't handle it any longer. He had already heard and seen everything he needed. He was so angry that he thought he could burst. His only thoughts at the time were about strangling that woman if she were in front of him right now. This was really out of character for Alex. He grabbed a bottle of scotch, took a big sip, and then poured the remainder down the sink. He laid on the bed, lost in thinking, and fell into a deep sleep. He wasn't sure how long he'd been sleeping, but he awoke when he heard someone unlock the door to his room. The maid gasped when she discovered he was still in the room. She said, "I'm so sorry, sir. I had no idea you were here, and there was no safety latch on the door. I'll come back and tidy your room later. Could you tell me when would be a good time to return?" she asked. "What time is it?" Alex asked. She said, "It's 11 a.m. "Okay, miss. I'll be out of here in an hour." The pressure in his brain had almost totally receded, as had the pounding in his chest. Alex believed he could address the matter right away, so he called Jody's office. He wished to leave a trail that would conceal the fact that he already knew the truth. Unsurprisingly, he was informed that Jody was not present, so he claimed he'd call her on her cell phone. When she responded, he inquired, "Jody, where are you? I tried calling your office, but they said you did not show up today. You are sleeping with a guy behind my back." Jody's temper surged, but she knew it was best to remain calm. She responded, "Alex, I'm not sleeping with some guy, as you so eloquently put it. Trish and I both told you that she, not I, planned to meet Larry. I'm at home. I was too unhappy to work, so I took the day off. Please come home, Alex, so that we can settle everything up. I'm heading home right now. Call Trish and ask her to come over. Bring her cheating ass closer to your cheating ass," he thought to himself as Alex stepped through the door. They both ran toward him and spoke at the same time. Jody attempted to hug and kiss him, but he pulled her away. He listened to them for a time, planning what he would do and say. Finally, he lifted his hand to stop them from speaking, stating that he would not tell exactly what he knew or how he had discovered it, but that he would make it plain that he knew more than they suspected. Alex stated, "I want you both to stop this nonsense. Just so you know, I am not buying any of this. First of all, Trish, I feel you are having an affair with Larry. You were the first on the scene, and I assume Jody covered for you while taking care of your children. But when you went, I believe my lovely wife planned to sleep with Larry as well. Why should I believe this? Because when I questioned Larry, he did not admit I was mistaken. He didn't tell me it was Trish and not Jody. Larry intended to sleep with you both, didn't he?" He knew he was correct based on the expressions on their faces. Of course, he already knew all of this. He proceeded. Jody, after your mother died, your father came to me and told me all she had done and warned me about you. He stated you and your sisters are just as promiscuous like your mother and warned me to keep an eye on you. At the time, I didn't think much of it, but he was correct. I wish you were here to tell him how right he was, but he's gone. Perhaps it's best that he doesn't witness the disaster you've created of your life. He mentioned their mother and father. Both women became very furious. Tears flowed down their cheeks, and they breathed heavily and rapidly. Alex realized he'd cornered them. Now. Okay, Jody, this is your one chance, but only one. One mistake, one lie, and it's over. Understood? Yes, Alex. I know the entire truth and nothing but the truth, he said. How many times did you sleep with Larry Evandale? Alex, please do not make me answer that question. I love you and sincerely want to save our marriage. I want you to continue loving me. Thank you, Alex. I will inform you if you insist. But don't make me. Please discuss. She bowed her head and spoke twice. He inquired, how many other men have you slept with since we got married? She lifted her head, her eyes wide with terror. Oh, God. Alex, please do not make me answer that. You despise me. Please. She could see the rage on his face as he spat out. Tell me or I'll leave, she whispered a couple times. I'm not sure what he shouted. I cannot hear you. I mentioned a few, and I'm not sure how many. Please, Alex, do not abandon me. Please. I have been entirely honest here and now. Please, she pleaded. Alex remarked calmly, you're both cheaters. So here's what will happen. Jody, you violated our wedding vows and ended our marriage. Starting now, I'm going to sleep with anyone, wherever and whenever I want. Trish, you are disloyal to your spouse. From now on, you are mine. I never liked Carl in the first place, so I don't mind embarrassing him. If you don't like the notion, I suppose I'll just have to tell him what you've been up to, she yelled. I'll never be your Alex. That is not going to happen. Oh, is that true? By the way, after seeing Larry, I couldn't help but notice how much your twins like him. You know, those small flat spots on their ears. So maybe I'll just drop a tip to Carl and recommend he look into things. I am confident the DNA findings will not be to your liking. So, is no still your answer? Trish's face indicated that she was in Alex's hands. Now get your ass on my bed and undress down to your underpants. I will be there in a minute. Get yourself together immediately away, otherwise things will not go well for you. She looked afraid, her eyes wide and her chin shaking, but she nodded meekly and gave Jody a begging expression. She exited the room and went to the bedroom. Jody was astonished by what was happening and asked, Alex, how can you do this to us? How can you do this to Trish? I realize I was wrong, but it will be difficult for us to go through this. Jody, I don't give a damn if we get through this. If you don't like it, you can leave. I don't care. You and Trish put yourselves into this problem, so I don't care how you plan to get out of it. How long will you keep this up, Alex? When can we begin trying to save our marriage? Do you want the truth? I'm not sure how long I'll continue sleeping with other women. I suppose I'll keep doing it till I don't want to strangle you. Each time I see you. Maybe I'll never quit, because you threw out our wedding vows. I see no need to honor them either. I will tell you this. If you ever sleep with another man again, our marriage will terminate immediately. There will be no wait, no second chances. You've had all of the extramarital sex you're going to receive while married to me. And it's over. Do you understand? Jody nodded and muttered, yes. Alex nodded in agreement and continued. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a woman to take care of. You might know her. Trish stood near the bed while Alex perched on the side, indicating for her to approach. He reached out with a gentle, careful touch. You know, Trish, I've long wondered how magnificent you may be. And now I can say you're even more beautiful than I anticipated, Alex replied, his tone serious. Trish gazed at him, surprised and warm. Are you suggesting you've thought about me in this way before, Alex? She inquired, her voice calm yet intrigued. Yes, of course. Trish, you're a beautiful woman. And truthfully, I've envisioned more than simply how your breasts may appear. I've also considered what it might be like to make love with you. But since I was married to Jody, I never acted on those sentiments. Still, believe me, they've been there. Now, there's no reason why I can't tell you everything I've envisioned doing with you. There's no reason why we can't simply enjoy being near to each other. Believe me, I intend to continue spending time with you whenever the opportunity arises. Alex softly brought Trish closer to him and kissed her on the shoulder. It was a touching moment, and Trish seemed to appreciate the attention. She sent out a small sigh, expressing her pleasure, which encouraged Alex to continue. He switched his emphasis to ensure that both her needs and the intimacy of the moment were addressed, and her satisfaction was palpable as he held her close. He gently touched her cheek with his palm, allowing the moment to deepen. He stepped back and remarked, "Let's keep this moment between us." Looking into her eyes with a steady gaze, he added, "Trish, there's something I want you to know the next time you come here. Let us leave the past and our normal problems outside. Let's make the best of our time together. Trish." His eyes were a mix of confusion and comprehension, and Alex could feel the tension between them ease. He continued, his voice calm yet forceful. "We should make this arrangement simple and respectful. Let's make sure nothing interrupts the lives we've already created." Trish's gaze were intense and vulnerable, and Alex could feel the tension increasing from the weight of his words. He went on to say, "I will make sure nothing jeopardizes your situation, but I want us to be completely honest. When we are together, I want you to be open and willing to share these experiences with me whenever the occasion arises. Do you understand?" Trish responded with a slight smile. "Alex, you have this effect on me." "Yes, I understand. And I will do what you ask." Alex slowly pressed his palm across her inner thigh, his touch deliberate yet leisurely as she leaned into the moment. He led her to the bed and helped her settle in. He stepped back, took off his shirt, and tossed it onto a nearby chair. Then he turned to Trish and said, "Now it's your choice. You can stop this right now. Get dressed and depart. We will never do this again. Alternatively, you can choose to continue and show me how you genuinely feel about this connection." Trish hesitated, her attention riveted on Alex as she considered the gravity of the situation. Trish sat up, reaching for his belt buckle. After they had spent time together and were both satisfied, Alex told Trish, "I want you to come here every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, hire a babysitter, and spend the second half of the day with me. If you need money for a babysitter, I will give it to you. But I need you here all afternoon. Also, remember that I insist you never wear underpants in my presence. I can do it, Alex, and I don't need assistance with babysitting expenses. I am fine with our small moments, whenever you wish." Trish dressed and left the bedroom. She walked down the hall to the kitchen, where Jody sat at the table with a painful expression and tears flowing down her cheeks. "I apologize, Jody," Trish said, "but I'm not giving up. I am his to take whenever he wants. You were a fool to jeopardize your marriage, this amazing man, and everything he has to give for any of your escapades. Larry doesn't compare to Alex, and I doubt the others do either. I adore Carl and don't want to leave him, but he can be a jerk at times and isn't very good in bed. But Alex represents the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and you wrecked it. If I were you, I would do everything in my ability to keep him." When Trish left the house, Jody sat crying until Alex entered the room. Then she got up, dashed to the bedroom, and shut the door. Alex hadn't seen her for the rest of the day and ended up sleeping in their guest room. Over the next month, Alex met with Trish every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, as well as Monday and Wednesday evenings. He booked dates with ladies he knew from his prior employment or through social acquaintances, and Colton had always expressed an interest in him. However, he had never allowed himself to give her any attention. Now that the walls had been removed, Alex and then began to know each other on a completely different level. Sometimes he met a stranger at a pub and spent time with her in a hotel room. On those nights, Alex would return home weary and smelling like his daily experiences. He could see the toll it was having on Jody. It was excruciatingly difficult for her. He noticed how much she was hurting, but he didn't really care. He spent weekends with Jody, and they actually talked and did activities together. Throughout that month, he did not share any intimate moments with his wife. She asked several times, but he just shook his head. He wasn't prepared yet. It had been a little over a month since he discovered his wife's infidelity, and he decided it was time to take things a step further. That Friday evening, he stopped by a local bar before returning home. He knew a woman named Carolyn who frequented the establishment and invited her over. She drove her own car and followed him to his home. Alex walked through the door and found the house empty. He took Carolyn to the guest bedroom, where they spent time together, not caring what Jody saw or heard. When he glanced toward the door, he noticed Jody standing there, watching them. Her face conveyed both pain and anger. Alex simply nodded, smiled, and went about his business. After he and Carolyn finished, they both dressed, and Alex walked her to her car. Carolyn responded, "I assume you and your wife have an open marriage, Alex." But I observed she didn't look very pleased about it. "Actually, Carolyn, we do not have an open marriage, but I don't want to disclose everything to you right now. Someday I will. Do not worry. I adore being with you." He kissed her softly before saying goodbye. When he returned to the house, Jody came at him, pounding on his chest and shouting, "I hate you!" Alex replied bitterly, "Good. Now you understand how I feel. Now you understand how I felt when I discovered how carelessly you handled our wedding vows. You now understand what it's like when someone you care about does the same thing to you as you did to me. I promise you this, Jody. I will never bring another woman into this home again. I'll never sleep with Trish here again. This is my solemn vow to you." Jody relaxed, and her rage appeared to dissipate. In fact, she inquired with a hint of a smile, "Will you start making love to me again?" "Alex?" Alex moved over to the kitchen table and took out a folder. "No," he replied. "I don't ever want to sleep with you again. These are the divorce documents. My lawyer prepared the day after I found out. You are a cheating liar. I'm going now and will return on Monday to get all of my belongings. Have your lawyer contact me? Oh, and by the way, I'll keep seeing Trish because she's incredible, but not much better than Kay and Bobby, who will continue to see. It appears that you were the least exciting member of your family. Goodbye, Jody. And now tell me, was it worthwhile?" He left the papers on the table and went out the door. Jody, completely stunned, slumped into a chair and burst into sobs. Here's the next story. Her laughter at the party was more audible than usual, too intelligent to be innocent. A sexy Catwoman suit, a smirking trainer in the corner, and a sharp knot in my stomach confirmed all I'd feared. She thought I didn't notice, but I caught every glance and covert message. Betrayal was not limited to the bedroom. It was in the air we inhaled that night. I did not confront her then. I planned. Revenge is not loud. It's precise. Calculated. It was too late when her lover stood handcuffed and begged for compassion. You play with fire, and you get burned. This is how it all ended. Ryan straightened the neat cuffs of his black shirt as he looked in the bedroom mirror. The black half-mask rested on his temple. He'd picked a Phantom of the Opera-inspired outfit that was discreet yet polished, just how he preferred to display himself to the world. Heather moved over from her vanity. She was wearing a tight, pitch-black Catwoman outfit that hugged every curve. Ryan's tiny smile was reflected in the mirror, but it never reached his eyes. He'd been on edge all day because Heather had sent him too many weird signals. That slinky clothing appears a little too planned. Are you sure you like it? She teased by slowly moving her hips in an exaggerated display. Too much or just enough? Ryan replied evenly. He was not in the mood to shower her with compliments or question her decision. They'd agreed to go simple yet sexy for the Halloween party, and she went all out. Let's get underway. Nick texted that they were about to start the costume contest. Heather shot him a short, questioning look. He could see she wanted more from him, a reply, a joking remark, a hint of normal appreciation. Instead, he turned away and retrieved his wallet and keys from the dresser. They didn't say much during the drive. The tension in the automobile was so thick that it almost fogged the glass. Heather fiddled with her phone, tapping away with her lacquered burgundy nails. Ryan couldn't help but notice that she was smiling at something. He reminded himself that it was most likely just a text from one of her pals. Still, a hollow ache sank in his chest. He didn't have concrete evidence yet, but his instinct told him something was wrong. The suburban street was a disorganized patchwork of parked automobiles, with silhouettes of costumed visitors moving up the walkway toward Nick and Lucy's expansive front porch. The lights flickered in flickers of orange and purple plastic, with ghouls and jack-o'-lanterns sprinkling the stairs. Lucy appeared on the driveway as Ryan and Heather approached, dressed like a flapper in a feathered headdress and fringed dress. Ryan. Heather. Lucy squealed and hugged them each in turn. Get in. Everyone is already inquiring where you are. Heather. Girl, that costume is ridiculous. Heather grinned, her face lit up with pride. Ryan smiled politely at Lucy and gently placed his hand across Heather's lower back. He might have been on guard, but he wasn't about to let her slip out of sight tonight. Not with the odd vibes circling in his mind. Inside, the air smelt of cinnamon candles and spiced rum. It was a kaleidoscope of costumes, with a neon skeleton dancing by the couch, a Cleopatra laughing beside the punch bowl, and a group of devils and angels taking selfies in the foyer. Nick, apparently proud of his extravagant decor, approached in a sharp black suit. A skeleton mask was shoved up over his spiky hair, giving the impression that he was bored of wearing it. I'm glad you guys made it, Nick remarked, giving Ryan a firm handshake. We put up a bar in the kitchen. If you want a proper drink, there are plenty of seltzers and coolers, whatever works for you. Heather gave a brief grin. She joked that she was definitely going to have a genuine drink. I might need it. Nick's gaze shifted between them, possibly feeling the tension, but he simply nodded. The kitchen is that way. Lucy also made some fancy ghost cocktails. Ryan was going to lead Heather forward when he spotted Jason across the room. Tall, slender, and visibly muscular. Jason donned a leather jacket with dog tags. Ryan's fingers tightened around Heather's waist, but it wasn't because of her half-completed military renegade costume. When Jason saw Heather, he smirked, and his eyes flicked hungrily over her tight Catwoman suit. Ryan recognized the expression. He'd seen the same expression on random men who checked her out in restaurants or malls. Unaware that she was married, Jason recognized the difference. Ryan gave Nick a calm look before steering Heather away. Let's go find those ghostly beverages, right? Heather said. Her voice was somewhat breathy, as if she had noticed Jason and was nervous. It could be amusing to try Lucy's concoction. The kitchen was busy with costumed guests preparing drinks and cracking jokes. Plastic spiders hung from the chandelier. Some guys dressed as superheroes debated about Marvel against DC. Typical Halloween banter. Ryan took a big glass off the counter and poured a swirl of rum over ice. Heather preoccupied herself with selecting a vivid green potion called Witch's Brew. Cheers, she remarked, clinking her glass lightly against his. She took a large sip. Ryan just nodded. He searched the room and noticed Jason standing at the far wall, talking to Lucy. He appeared to be looking across at Heather again. Ryan clenched his jaw. He pressed the glass to his lips, letting the rum's burn soothe him. Heather leaned in, her free hand resting lightly on his forearm. You okay? She posed the queries, gentle but loaded with innuendo. Fine, Ryan lied, claiming that he was simply taking everything in. She opened her mouth to speak more, but Lucy's voice cut through the discussion, announcing the start of a stupid costume contest. Heather sighed and flashed him a half smile as Lucy led them into the living area. The living room was full. People crowded onto couches or stood along the walls, cheering as each outfit was shouted out. A flamboyant Elvis look-alike earned the most laughter, while a serious Maleficent drew praise. Nick joked about handing out cheap novelty trophies. Ryan half listened, his gaze periodically flickering to Heather, who was speaking with Lucy. She smiled brightly and easily, but every now and then she would cast a glance around, as if looking for someone. Sure enough, Jason was hovering at the fringe of the crowd, sipping a beer. Lucy was the next to call. "We have Heather the Catwoman. Come up, Heather." She stepped forward, prancing playfully and pretending to flick her imagined whip. Laughter spread around the room. Jason clapped and whistled loudly enough for Ryan to hear. Ryan noticed himself rolling his eyes. When Heather finished her cat-like posture, he faked a courteous smile. Ryan's chest swelled with passionate pride and jealousy. He was proud to have such a beautiful wife, but it was overshadowed by a nagging suspicion that someone was invading on his turf. "Damn," Nick murmured close Ryan's shoulder. Ryan offered a quick nod. "Heather looks great in her suit." "Yeah, she knows how to attract an audience." Nick did not seem to pick up on Ryan's tone. "So, is everything all right with you?" he asked softly, casting a sidelong glance at Ryan. "I observed you appeared anxious." Ryan shrugged. "We're fine," he said, but his expression probably revealed a different story. After the costume, the cheers and jokes ended. People dispersed again, forming smaller groups. Ryan remained near a table covered in chips and dip. He was about to grab a handful of tortilla chips when Jason's voice came from behind him. "Hello, guy." Jason spoke, sounding a little too casual. Ryan turned with the half mask still perched over one eye, giving him a grim expression. "That was one hell of a party, right?" "Sure," Ryan responded curtly. He took in Jason's slender build and confident demeanor. Ryan was put off by the guy's confidence. Jason let out a quick laugh. "So, Heather, you look great tonight. I bet you're proud." Ryan's gaze sharpened. "You're damn right I am." "Yes, she is something else," Jason explained, swirling his beer. "You've got to admire her dedication. She was always pushing her limitations throughout my training sessions." He chuckled gently. "The woman is unstoppable." Ryan disliked the sound of that. "She mentioned your workouts," he added quietly. "Based on what I've heard, you do a terrific job." "Absolutely," Jason responded. "You should stop by sometime, check out how she is, see how we do things." Ryan's jaw was set. The insinuation was clear. Before he could react, Heather was at his elbow. The lips curved into a courteous smile. "Hey, you two," she said with a cheery voice. "What exactly are you talking about? Just applauding your dedication." Jason replied with a grin that made Ryan's skin crawl. Heather's gaze shifted from Jason to Ryan, sensing the tension. She forced a laugh. "Oh, yes. So the sessions are intense, correct?" Ryan mumbled, his tone clipped. "I'm glad to hear you're pushing the boundaries." Jason displayed that arrogant smile again, raising his beer as if to salute the bounds. He spoke, then slid away, leaving them both in awkward quiet. Heather swiftly changed the subject. "Did you vote for the greatest costume yet?" "Lucy is trying to finalize the tallies." Ryan couldn't hide the mistrust in his voice. "No, I'll tackle it in a minute," without waiting for a response. He proceeded to the front of the house, leaving Heather standing there. Her expression was somewhere between guilty and confused. Ryan needed air. He stepped onto the porch, blinking under the light of a false cobweb-laden lamp. A crisp October breeze brushed his hair, and he exhaled a breath he had not realized he was holding. He randomly scanned through his phone, half looking for a distraction. Instead, he found himself looking at Heather's old texts, her beautiful messages from several months ago. Little love messages or crazy selfies. These days, her phone was locked, Always face downward, she had become more evasive, secretive. A swirl of humiliated fear gathered in his stomach. The notion of his wife laughing intimately with that arrogant trainer made his wrath boil, but he hesitated to raise a disturbance without proof. Suddenly, the front door opened, and Lucy came out. She wrapped her arms against the chill, her flapper fringe swaying with each movement. "You okay?" she asked. "I mean, you left really abruptly?" Heather appeared apprehensive. Ryan forced a half smile. "Yeah. I just needed to take a breath." Lucy took a time to observe him. She paused. "I don't want to pry, but if something is wrong, you might want to talk about it." He swallowed and shook his head. "I appreciate that, Lucy, but I'm fine. Just some personal details. I will manage it." Lucy offered him an encouraging pat on the arm. "All right, but Nick and I are here if you need anything." He nodded, grateful but unprepared to offer. "Thank you, Lucy." She slipped back inside, leaving Ryan alone with the crisp autumn air and his seething questions. After a few moments, he decided to return inside. Heather made no mention of his brief exit. She was having a conversation with Jason's wife, Marissa, near the punch table. Marissa was shorter, delicate, and clothed in a beautiful princess gown. She seemed sweet and unassuming. Ryan gave her a short nod as he passed. Nick beckoned from across the room and offered Ryan a beer. He took it, appreciating the little distraction, but keeping an eye on Heather and Jason for a time. The party atmosphere returned as usual. Music, laughter, random group shots were taken, but the tension did not lessen completely. An hour and 2 beers later, Ryan was back in the living room, perched on the edge of the couch. Jason slid next to him, appearing more tipsy than before. Ryan's first inclination was to stand, but he refrained. "Hello, buddy," Jason slurred, leaning too near. "Sorry if I came across as strong earlier." He gave a crooked grin. "Heather, there's something unique, you know? Very special." Ryan's spine stiffened. "She is my wife," he stated with a bland voice. "Right?" Jason exclaimed while waving his beer. "And perhaps you're busy, stressed, or not paying attention? I'm not sure, but she's obviously working through these concerns with me." Ryan's heart pounded. "What are you implying?" Jason blinked and gave a chuckle. "Dude, don't pretend you didn't notice. She's training with me far after usual business hours. She requires more than your moderate approach, my friend." Ryan felt a rush of rage run through his body. The borders of his vision appeared to blur. He wanted to smack the guy in the teeth right there, but instead he grabbed the couch cushion. "Ryan warned you not to speak too freely. You've gotten intoxicated." Jason shrugged with a lazy look on his lips. "Yes, I am. But that does not make me a liar." Heather and Marissa were speaking quietly across the room at the same time. Ryan's gaze focused on them. Heather's face was pale, her eyes darting frantically to Jason. Marissa seemed upset. She crossed her arms and shook her head. Ryan couldn't hear what they were saying, but it was evident they were having a furious discussion. Heather abruptly pushed away from Marissa and raced toward the kitchen. Jason snickered. "The princess is enraged. They must have had a romantic disagreement." He threw back the last of his drink. "I'm going to check if your loving wife wants a top-up. Perhaps she wants something else." He rose, stumbled slightly, and walked out of the living room. Ryan set the bottle down. The mind races. He needed a moment to breathe, to consider the possibility that confronting him in front of everyone may result in an explosion. Yet, that could be just what he needed. Make them aware. Corner them. He prowled after Jason. Be careful not to draw too much attention. He discovered them in the hallway leading to the laundry room, slightly hidden from the main crowd. Jason was leaning against the wall, and Heather was looking at him with a mixture of rage and frustration. Ryan slowed, keeping out of sight right around the turn. "You stated you would not say anything," Heather hissed, arms folded. "You promised." Jason scoffed. Relax. He's completely clueless regardless. Heather's voice quivered with panic. I told you Ryan is not an idiot, and you are acting recklessly. Stop bragging. He leaned in and rested his hand on her shoulder. All right, but you need to calm down. If he was on to us, he would have said something already. The guy is overly courteous for his own good. Ryan's stomach lurched, hearing them corroborate this. My God, how could they be so obvious? Heather gave a strained groan. We need to figure out how to manage this. I can't continue to lie to him if he is. I can't take a risk. Jason cut her off, his voice lowering to a whisper. Heather, sweetie, you're the one who approached me with your problems. You mentioned that Ryan is constantly too busy and distracted, so we had some fun. Don't feel bad about it right now. She closed her eyes in pain. I should not have done that. I have never cheated in my life, but now. Ryan felt a strong rush of nausea. His heartbeat sounded in his ears. Jason slid his fingers down Heather's arm. She did not yank it away. That was sufficient. I am having difficulty breathing. Ryan stepped into the hallway. They had my full attention. Heather's eyes sprung open. Jason jumped upright, half smirking, expecting Ryan to stammer and move away, but Ryan refused to back down. Not this time, Heather, Ryan remarked, his voice trembling with anger. Do you want to repeat that? Her expression changed from surprise to ashen. Ryan, it is not. Jason lifted his hands in faux defense with a smirk on his lips. Hey, take it easy, buddy. This is just between me and myself. Shut your mouth, Ryan snapped, moving closer. I'm done listening to your filth in the adjoining living room. Someone must have felt the dispute since a silence appeared to spread. Curious faces looked around corners. Nick, Lucy, and a half-dozen other visitors drew closer, creating an unintended audience. Heather attempted to clutch Ryan's arm. Please let me clarify. He shook her off and glared at Jason. Do you believe you can brag about screwing my wife? Do you think I would stand here and do nothing? Jason's drunken bravado blazed. At the very least, I'm meeting her needs, man. Maybe if you weren't so caught up with your fancy career. Ryan's hand flew out, striking Jason squarely in the jaw. The collision resonated down the corridor. Gasps erupted. Jason staggered and crashed into the wall, his eyes wide with shock. Heather yelled, Ryan, stop! She pushed forward, but Nick grabbed her from behind and pulled her back. Jason spat blood and twisted his face in anger. You son of a bitch! He snarled and wiped his lips. She came to me. Did you even ask her what she wanted? Ryan stepped forward. Fists clenched, but Nick flung himself between them, placing his hand into Ryan's chest. Easy, guy. Not here or now. The entire hallway was filled with anxiety. Lucy held her hands over her mouth and tears in her eyes. Marissa stood behind her, shell-shocked and mumbling. Jason, what did you do? Heather's cheeks were wet and Ryan couldn't tell if it was from shame, fear, or remorse. Possibly all three. He felt raw, betrayed, consumed by the seething tempest within him. Jason finally got up, glaring at Ryan. This is not over. He grumbled and stumbled away toward the front door. Marissa followed, still reeling. Heather tried again to approach Ryan. I apologize, she choked out. I'm so sorry. Ryan's look was very cold. Stay away from me. He turned and stormed through the crowd of quiet people. No one dared to stop him. A part of him felt ashamed by exposing his marriage disaster in front of half the neighborhood. But he didn't care that the truth was out. Ryan pushed open the front door, stepping out into the hard night air, his mind filled with raw rage, heartbreak, and grim resolve. The chat he overheard was enough to put it beyond doubt. His wife had deceived him, and the arrogant trainer had rubbed it in his face. He could hear Heather's footsteps approaching from behind. She clutched his arm, her voice shaking. Ryan, please do not go like this. Let's chat at home. He spun and shook her off. Do you want to talk? Then tell me how long, how many times. She looked aside, her eyes flowing, unable to speak. His voice broke, but rage kept it steady. "You can't even say it, Ryan. I know I'm done for tonight," he snapped. "I need time to ponder, and I do not want you around me." Panic gripped her features. "Please, I made an error, but I do adore you. I will do anything. Please don't leave me like this." Ryan's expression stiffened. "You've just wrecked everything we've built. Consider me done with that." He strode to his car, pulled the door open, and jumped behind the wheel. Heather's cries rang across the grass, but Ryan didn't turn back. He jammed the key into the ignition. Adrenaline rushing through his veins, he sped out of Nick's driveway, unconcerned about who could witness him drive away into the night. He knew only one thing. It wasn't just heartbreak. It was wartime. And Heather was incorrect to expect him to dissolve into a teary, forgiving mess. He was anything but helpless. He'd gather the proof, strategize his movements, and make them both repent they hadn't crossed him. Ryan had not slept since the night of the Halloween catastrophe. Over the last several days, he'd requested a week's absence from the IT firm, citing a family issue in order to secretly strategize. He'd arranged for a small, short-term rental apartment across town using a friend's real estate connections. It had simple white walls and limited furniture, yet it provided privacy from Heather's emotional outbursts. Ryan drank a black coffee that morning, attempting to block out the ghostly pictures of Heather in Jason's arms. He was done rehearsing that in his thoughts, but it lingered in every idle moment, even while he reviewed a mental list of next steps. Legal data collecting. He heard a knock on his temporary front door. He placed down his drink, his heart racing. He was not anticipating visitors. Steeling himself, he looked through the peephole. Nick stood there, visibly uncomfortable but determined. 2 cups of to-go coffee with a cardboard tray. Ryan opened the door. "Morning," he replied, not quite smiling. Nick held up the coffee. "I got you a fresh brew. Mind if I come in?" Ryan stood aside. "Sure." Nick entered the desolate living room. He looked around, noting the empty bookcases and sofa bed. "Damn, man, I didn't expect you to move out so quickly." Ryan shrugged, crossing his arms. "We needed more space. I couldn't handle being under the same roof." Nick groaned after hearing her justifications and handed her the coffee. "So, how are you holding up?" Ryan merely stated, "I'm focused. Not excellent, nor bad. Just, I am dealing with it." Nick's gaze slid to the ground. "Heather has been blowing up Lucy's phone. She wants to see you, talk to you, beg your forgiveness?" Ryan scoffed. "Yes, she can keep pleading. I'm not sure how many times I need to hear this. It's only a mistake. I heard them with my own ears." "Nick." "She is unable to rewrite that." Nick nodded slowly. "I got it. Look, I wanted to apologize for not seeing the warning flag sooner. I mean, that trainer asshole Jason has always had a reputation. I just never imagined, you know." Ryan's jaw constricted. "Do not blame yourself. They completed this on their own." Nick moved and exhaled. "So, what is your plan?" Ryan took a drink of coffee, enjoying the sharpness. "Plan to collect proof, safeguard my interests, and make them both regret it. I'm done playing Mr. Nice Guy." Nick nodded attentively. "Lucy and I support you, Guy. Whatever you need. You've got it." Ryan managed a half smile. "I appreciate it. Actually, I might need some assistance soon. Discreetly, there's some information I need to confirm concerning Jason." Nick raised his brow. "Meaning?" Ryan paused, then spoke carefully. "I assume Jason has been sleeping with other married clients. Heather might not be his first. If I can verify that trend, it will strengthen my case that he targeted Heather." Nick's eyes shone with awareness. "I get it. I have some digging skills. Maybe talk to a handful of guys at the gym where I attend. People talk. Rumors may surface." Ryan nodded gratefully. "Exactly. I do not want conjecture. I want facts, but yeah, any leads? Help?" They exchanged firm handshakes. They share an unspoken understanding. Nick quickly laughed and left Ryan alone again, but Ryan felt a new sense of purpose. He wasn't raging aimlessly. He was meticulously planning. That afternoon, Ryan's phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Normally he would ignore it, but instinct told him to check. Marissa. Ryan, this is Marissa, Jason's wife. I got your number from Lucy. Could we speak? Ryan's fingers hovered over the screen. Half of him wanted to block anything related to Jason, but another half saw an opportunity. He typed back, Ryan, sure. What is on your mind? The phone rang almost immediately. Ryan, set it to speaker. Marissa. Hello, thank you for picking up, she said, her voice soft. I'm not sure where to start. Ryan leaned against the kitchen countertop. Simply state what you need to say. She breathed shakily. Okay. I kicked Jason out. After that whole scene, he practically admitted everything. He said it was partly my responsibility for not paying him enough attention, if you can believe that. Ryan furrowed his brow. He is a piece of work. You have every right to be furious. Furious isn't even an adequate description. Marissa responded with a sour laugh. But here's the deal. I know he's been hooking up with several women on his client list. I just can't prove it. And if I file for divorce, he may lie about our finances and do other unsavory things. Ryan's thoughts raced. Do you need assistance constructing a case? Exactly. I know you're technologically savvy, and I know you want to bring him down after what he did with Heather. To you. Perhaps we can help one another. Ryan remembered hearing something about Jason's large fitness brand goals. He's been establishing a brand, correct? Sponsorship agreements, perhaps even social media alliances. Yes, Marissa exclaimed. He's attempting to close a large deal with a local sportswear firm. He's been bragging about it for several weeks. It's essentially his dream. He wants to expand nationwide, open new gyms, and create training videos. Ryan grinds his teeth. Let us see how sponsors respond if they hear that a trainer sleeps with married clientele. Marissa sounded tentative. So we are on the same page. I am listening, Ryan replied with a chilly tone in his voice. Let's work out how we can get what we want. Later that day, they agreed to meet in person at a quiet cafe on the outskirts of town. Ryan arrived first and chose a corner booth. He wanted to watch from a vantage position. Who came and went, just in case Jason tries something. Marissa crept in, wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses, as if she wanted to hide from the world. She removed her shades after she was seated, displaying swollen eyes. Clearly, she had been sobbing. Thank you for attending. She mumbled and fiddled with her coffee cup. No problem, Ryan responded. Let us avoid the small conversation. Tell me about your situation. Marissa drew a hesitant breath. Jason and I have been married for 3 years. I began seeing unusual behavior months ago, such as late nights and flirting with other ladies, but I was incredibly naive. Then, at the Halloween party, everything exploded. He came home angry because you punched him and we fought. He essentially blamed me for everything. Ryan maintained a calm tone. And do you want a divorce? She nodded. Yes, but I need to make sure I'm not left penniless. He is a skilled manipulator. He'll say I was the one who neglected him, or perhaps I was unfaithful. Some gibberish. I don't have enough money to employ a sophisticated lawyer on my own. Ryan pondered. I can recommend someone. I've been meeting with an attorney who specializes in difficult divorce matters, but it's not inexpensive. Her eyes shone with purpose. If it means taking Jason down, I'll scrounge together the bucks. I can't let him continue to damage individuals like you or whoever he's seducing. It is disgusting. Ryan felt a twinge of empathy for her. She was caught in her own nightmare, which was very similar to his. Okay, so let's talk strategy. You mentioned he has sponsors lined up? Marissa nodded. He is interested in a brand named Ultra Fit. They fund local fitness expos. He is enamored with them. Ryan smirked. If we demonstrate them a pattern of unethical activity, that brand contract is out the window. Marissa drank her coffee. The voice trembled. Yes, that would crush him. He's built his entire future around that sponsorship. They became silent as they processed the conversation's vindictive tone. Then Marissa leaned forward. I've got some text screenshots that show him talking about hooking up with a hot married client behind her husband's back. He does not mention names, but it is evident. Ryan pulled out his phone. Send them to me. I will forward them to my attorney. Meanwhile, obtain any financial records indicating that he has been funneling money or lying about his salary. Marissa nodded, raising the corners of her mouth in a grim grimace. I will. They set the plot in motion, forming an unlikely partnership based on mutual betrayal and a desire to bring Jason down. Ryan returned to the apartment 2 evenings later, combing through a treasure of call logs from the joint phone plan he used with Heather before separating their accounts. His mind was so focused that he almost didn't notice the knock when it came. He got up and looked through the peephole again. Heather stood there, appearing vulnerable and squirming uneasily. She held a little notebook. Ryan's first inclination was to ignore her, but something, perhaps curiosity or a desire for closure, prompted him to open the door slightly. What do you want? He asked coldly. She looked up. Eyes were ringed with red. Ryan, might I just come in? He took a pause before stepping aside. I'm giving you 5 minutes. She walked in, holding the notebook to her chest. I found out you moved from Lucy. I am not tracking you, I swear, she replied quickly. I need to talk. Ryan remained by the door, arms crossed. Talk. Heather's gaze darted over the blank space. Is this what it has come to? We can't even talk at home. He shot her at her allotted time. Look, that home is where you lied, cheated, and humiliated me. So yes, I would rather stay here. She shivered. Ryan, I know you detest me. I realize I made a huge mistake, but I want to make things right. His nostrils flared. Fix it. Do you believe an apology will suffice to resolve this? Heather's voice wobbled. I am not asking for immediate forgiveness, but please hear me out. We were married 5 years, had so many plans. Don't throw everything away. Ryan gave a sour laugh. I didn't toss it away. Heather, you did it the instant you opted to snuggle with your trainer. Tears rolled down her cheeks. He was. I'm not sure. It started when you became overly focused on your promotion. Remember how you hadn't looked at me in days, and suddenly Jason was there, praising me and giving me attention, and you had no self-control. Ryan ended with anger, infusing his words. Congrats. She blinked, painfully. I'm not making excuses. I admit I was selfish, but I swear it was never about love. It was an escape, a pointless haste. The situation then became out of control. Ryan locked his gaze on her jaw. Is that meant to help me sleep at night? So, you were bored. So you got into bed with a scumbag trainer? Heather sobbed and wiped her tears. No, I simply wanted you to know that I regret everything. I terminated it shortly after the party. I told Jason I didn't want to see him again. He tried to call, but I blocked him. Ryan felt a glimmer of frigid satisfaction. Good. At the very least, you had the sense to do so. Heather extended the notebook shakily. Here are some notes I made about everything I did. I was dishonest all the time. I listed them out. I am offering them to you because I have nothing to hide anymore. If you still want to divorce me, I can understand. But I think you can understand that I am not lying about stopping it. Ryan took the notebook, methodically scrolling through the pages of handwritten words. He scanned a few lines, dates, and times, short confessions. It was heartbreaking to read, but also affirming. Finally, he snapped it closed. I will check at it. Do not expect me to trust you again. Heather nodded, tears still flowing. Thank you for allowing me in. He opened the door, indicating that she should leave. "I will be in touch. Or not. I need time." She gave him a desperate, longing glance and then slid away. A day later, Marissa called back, her voice shaking with excitement. "Ryan, you will not believe this! I found a second phone and Jason's belongings." Ryan's pulse quickened. "Another phone? Like a burner?" "Yes. It was put into a gym bag and placed beneath some dirty towels. I charged it. Turned it on. There are a lot of texts from random women. Some are explicit. This is huge, right?" Ryan exhaled. "Huge. That suggests he was orchestrating all of these events behind the radar. If we can connect him to a number of married clients, we could ruin his entire career. Additionally, it will help your divorce case." Marissa paused. There's a lot to read. And other communications show he was messing around even before Heather, that unfortunate lady from the yoga studio. I recognized her name. It's sick, but what should we do with all of this? Ryan felt a vicious joy in his gut. "We document it. We will forward copies to both my and your lawyers. If you receive one, then we strategize." Marissa breathed. "Okay. I will send it all. Just promise me that we'll take him down. I can't bear his walking away from this as if it's no big thing." Ryan closed his eyes, remembering Jason's arrogant grin. "I promise." That afternoon, Ryan sat at a borrowed desk in the little apartment, laptop open. He had Heather's notepad, the phone logs, and now a zip file from Marissa's search. The pattern became evident as he read on. Jason targeted married women who were dissatisfied or bored, delivering flirtatious remarks before meeting up in gyms, hotels, and even their own houses. Ryan methodically gathered the evidence, including screenshots from Jason's burner phone. Text logs with Heather. Unknown woman number 1. Unknown woman number 2, and so on. He identified the times and cross-referenced them with credit card statements from the phone plan while working. He had a fresh sense of control. Rage remained simmering beneath the surface, but it now had direction. Occasionally, he looked at Heather's scrawled confessions about feeling abandoned, about how it began with flirtations, progressed to secret lunches, and finally hotel encounters. She claimed that remorse ate her alive, particularly in the latter weeks. She ended with a 3-page apology. Ryan felt a slight sting of regret in his chest for a brief period. They had previously been overjoyed, planning trips and dreamt of beginning a family. Now they were reduced to evidence, papers, and misery, but his anguish just strengthened his resolve. If Heather honestly wanted to atone, that's okay. But Jason had to pay the price for his shameless seduction of married ladies, and Ryan would not let him get away with it. Jennifer Brooks, Ryan's attorney, was a sharp-eyed lady in her early 40s who specialized in high-stakes divorce and financial forensics. She met Ryan in her office with a firm handshake. He arranged a huge binder of documents. "This is all we have thus far." Jennifer's eyebrows rose as she flipped over the pages. "You have been thorough," she added. Her tone conveyed admiration. "This Jason character is essentially burying himself and your wife. Is she cooperating?" Ryan sat straighter. "Heather claims she has cut off touch with him. She also gave me a journal full of confessions. She wants to fix everything, but I'm not sure I want that." Jennifer nodded. "I appreciate that if you decide to file for divorce, these materials will put you in a good position, particularly in terms of asset split and possibly alimony. Heather is the adulterous party, which can be used based on our state's legislation, but we have to be strategic." Ryan massaged his temples. "And if I want to ruin Jason's brand, can I do so without incriminating Heather too much? I mean, she's guilty, but I don't think I need to publish her name to the entire fitness community." Jennifer considered. "There is a careful balance. We can release enough information about Jason's habit of wrongdoing to jeopardize his sponsorship opportunities. If you are concerned about Heather's privacy, you may jeopardize her security." He paused. Did he care? He was angry because she had made her bed. However, another half felt conflicted. I will think about it. Let's focus on Jason's predatory behavior. If people assume Heather's involvement, so be it. Jennifer tapped a pen on the folder. All right. Given the infidelity, I will create a separation agreement that substantially advantages you. In the meantime, I'll see how we can turn Jason's dirty laundry to your benefit. Are you okay with me coordinating with Marissa's lawyer? Ryan nodded firmly. Yeah. We all want to expose him. Jennifer smiled. This is going to be intriguing. Ryan gave himself a rare treat that night, a bottle of aged whiskey that he had been preserving. He poured a large glass and gazed at the city lights through the apartment's solitary window. Heather had texted him again, imploring him to meet for coffee. He had not responded. He had a flurry of conflicting feelings. Despite everything, he had once adored Heather. Could it be salvaged, or was the treachery too severe? He took a deep sip, the whiskey scorching his throat, and remembered Heather waiting for him after long work nights, greeting him with a warm supper and a tired grin, how she made fun of him about his fancy profession, but boasts about his ambition to her friends. He clenched his jaw. No, she broke that loyalty the moment she got into bed with Jason. Nonetheless, he couldn't completely erase the previous recollections. Perhaps once everything was said and done, he'd consider her remorse, but first he'd see how far she was willing to go to right her wrongs. Ryan's phone buzzed about 11 p.m. The ID said Lucy. Lucy. He answered. It is late. Is everything okay? She let out a nervous breath. Ryan, I'm sorry for calling you now. I spotted Jason's car in Heather's driveway tonight. I was leaving Nick's bowling event when I went by your house. He was parked in front. Ryan's blood turned chilly. Excuse me. Was he at our house? Yes. Lucy spoke for maybe 20 minutes, then he drove away. I couldn't see Heather outside, but the lights were on. Ryan's heartbeat rang in his ears. Heather stated that she cut communication. She said Lucy hurried on. I understand. I'm simply telling you what I witnessed. Maybe he arrived uninvited. Perhaps she kicked him out. But I felt you should know. Tension curled in Ryan's stomach. Thank you for informing me. He hung up. The heart is thumping. Was Heather lying again, or was Jason forcing his way back? His phone flared up again. Heather's calling. He glared at it, unsure whether to pick it up. After 3 rings, he responded in a strained voice. What? Ryan? She sounded frantic. Jason just appeared out of nowhere, demanding to speak. I swear I didn't let him in. He became enraged, yelled at me, and rushed away. I do not know what to do. Ryan's fingers turned white as he grasped the phone. Should I believe you? Lucy claimed she spotted his car there. Heather exhaled shakily. This is the truth. I told him. I never want to see him again, even if I'm attempting to mend my marriage. He claimed I owed him for shutting him out. He was enraged because I told you everything. I threatened to call the police if he didn't leave. Ryan said nothing, listening to her labored breathing. Finally, Heather murmured, I know I'm the last person you trust, but I'm telling you he's insane. Please take care, duly noticed. Ryan snarled and disconnected the call. He threw his phone onto the sofa and let the rage simmer. One thing was certain. Jason was still sniffing about, hoping to keep Heather under his control or scare her. But if the trainer thought he could scare Ryan away, he was about to discover how mistaken he was. The next morning, Ryan awoke to 6 missed calls from an unknown number. Part of him wondered whether it was Jason, but he didn't bother calling back. He has larger fish to fry today, a meeting with Marissa and Jennifer to finalize their plan. He arrived at a downtown cafe where Marissa was already set at a corner table with her laptop open. She waved him over. Jennifer appeared shortly later, clutching a leather briefcase. Jennifer's gaze shifted between them. Morning. Let's dive right in. Ryan nodded and took a seat. Marissa, Do you want to start? Marissa squeezed her lips together. I discovered additional communications on Jason's burner phone. It's worse than I expected. He brags about hooking up with the wives of 2 local gym owners. I suppose he sees it as a sick conquest. Jennifer frowned and scribbled notes. So there are undoubtedly several proven affairs. Are there any signs of blackmail or coerced hush money? That could be a criminal aspect. Marissa shakes her head. Not specifically, although several communications suggest he received gifts from one woman. It could be hush money. Ryan joined in. At the very least, it demonstrates Jason's approach. He targets weak women, seduces them, and sometimes extorts benefits. Jennifer tapped her pen against the table. This will undoubtedly jeopardize his extremely fit status. The public outcry alone would force them to drop him. Marissa drew a calm breath. Good. Let us proceed. Is there anything you need from me? Jennifer leaned forwards. Document everything. I will approach Ultra Fits, the legal team, or the public relations department discreetly. Let them know that they are about to finance a morally bankrupt trainer. That alone may cause them to back off. Ryan felt terrible satisfaction. He will lose the transaction. Then he'll be in deep financial trouble. Right? Marissa's eyes fluttered. Yes, and if we time it right, his brand will collapse, correct? When I file for divorce, he will be more willing to settle swiftly, perhaps even sign away property or assets. He'll be too busy with damage control. Jennifer nodded. Exactly. Hits from both sides occur simultaneously. They worked out further specifics before finishing their strategy. Then Marissa departed. We need to get more of Jason's personal records from their condo. After lunch, Ryan glanced through his phone's messages and discovered a text from Lucy. Frantic. Ryan. Call me, say a P. Something has happened to Heather. His heart lurched. He dialed Lucy. She answered promptly. Ryan. Oh my God, I don't know how to express this. Heather's car was discovered abandoned at the old gym across town, and Nick and I can't contact her. She is not returning calls or texts. Ryan's pulse accelerated. Wait, what? Did the police discover it? Lucy's voice shook. Yes. Apparently it was left with the door open and the keys on the seat. A bystander reported it. The cops tracked down Heather's registration. They inquired if we knew where she was. Nick is out looking for her, but we have no idea. Ryan clenched his jaw. Adrenaline flooded his system. You think Jason is involved? Lucy's breath was captured, we assume, but we have no confirmation. Maybe Heather simply freaked out and abandoned the car. But that is so strange. Ryan grabbed his keys without thinking twice. I am on my way there right now. Please text me the location, Lucy, and do not panic. She breathed, shakily. Right. Stay in touch. Ryan's thoughts raced as he dashed across town. Heather's automobile was near the old gym where Jason used to coach people. It was mostly abandoned and is now overshadowed by a modern complex. He arrived to find 2 squad cars parked in front, and cop takes notes. Heather's silver vehicle sat haphazardly, with the driver's door open. Ryan parked and braced himself. A towering policeman approached. Do you know who owns this vehicle? Ryan nodded. Yes. This is my wife's automobile. We are apart. I got a call saying it had been located. The officer glanced at his notepad. We received a report regarding an abandoned automobile. The door was open. The key is inside. There is no evidence of the driver. Has your wife mentioned anything about coming here? No, she did not. Ryan spoke, his chest squeezing with worry. She has been avoiding this location. We assume her ex-lover is behind this. He used to train here. The officer frowned. You want to register a missing person report? Ryan inhaled, attempting to remain cool. Yes, if we don't find her quickly. The cop nodded. We will perform a brief sweep. We can't infer anything criminal yet, but this is clearly suspect. Let me acquire your contact information. Ryan gave his information before reaching for his phone. He desperately tried calling Heather and going straight to voicemail. His thoughts raced with terrifying scenarios. Had Jason dragged her out of the car, kidnapped her, or had she freely accompanied him? Nick arrived shortly afterward, looking glum. Lucy stood behind him, biting her lip and worried. "Is there any evidence of her?" Nick inquired, scanning the parking lot. Ryan shakes his head. Tension radiates from him. Nothing. Ryan's phone suddenly buzzed with an unfamiliar number. He snatched it up. "Hello?" Ryan heard Heather's shaky voice. "I'm okay. Please do not alert the police." Ryan's heart pounded. "Heather, where in the hell are you? Your automobile." She took a hesitant breath. "I apologize for worrying everyone." Jason cornered me. He urged we speak. I went into a panic. I abandoned my automobile and went away with him to keep him from God. I don't even know. He threatened to return to the house if I refused to accompany him. Ryan's temper flared. "So you just got into his car? Are you insane?" She sniffed. I wasn't sure what else to do. He was threatening me, claiming that if I didn't talk to him, he would cause further difficulty. "But please, I am safe. He left me off at a bus terminal. I'm going back now." Ryan rubbed his temples. "Stay on the line. I'm approaching your automobile along with the police. They believe you might be missing." Heather's voice trembled. "I will come to you. Please tell them not to arrest me or anything. I apologize." Ryan gestured to the police, who approached. Ryan covered the microphone. "She's okay. She's on the phone," she says. Jason threatened her, but she is safe. The cop relaxed somewhat and nodded. "We'll still need a statement, if she felt threatened." Heather came 20 minutes later in an Uber. She stepped out, agitated, with unkempt hair and puffy eyes. Lucy darted over and pulled her into an anxious hug. Nick remained behind them, arms folded. Ryan approached, sighing, happy that she appeared to be uninjured. But wrath persisted beneath the surface. "Heather," he said coldly. "This is ridiculous." She nodded, tears pouring. "I'm so sorry." He showed up in the grocery store parking lot. I felt stuck. He threatened to raise a commotion at your flat if I didn't talk, perhaps attempt to sabotage your job. I freaked out. I exited my car and went into his. Ryan gave her a fierce glare. "Are you listening to yourself? You let a psychopath blackmail you? You could have phoned me or the police." Heather's voice crackled. I went into a panic. He yelled and made threats. I figured if I just heard him out, he'd leave me alone. Nick cut in. "We should probably discuss this at home, away from the police." Heather turned to the officer and explained the gist of the story. The officer took notes. I told her to contact them if she wanted to file charges. She declined for now. "I just want to escape." After that, the group parted ways. Heather insisted on driving home, although being visibly scared. Lucy offered to follow her. Ryan and Nick stood in the parking lot together. They watched Heather pull away. Lucy is trailing behind. Nick murmured, "This is messed up." Jason is heading off the rails. Ryan grinds his teeth. We'll tackle it one way or another. That evening, Ryan decided to swing by Heather's place to see if she was okay. He discovered her cuddled up on the couch, holding a throw blanket. Crying causes swelling in the eyes. He stepped in gently. "You okay?" She looked up. Tears are threatening again. I apologize for causing a scare. I never wanted you, Lucy, or Nick to stress out. However, Jason was extremely unstable." Ryan held a tight stance. "Why didn't you phone me when he approached you? If you say you're done with him, treat him like an intruder." Heather shuddered and clutched the blanket. "I know. I froze. I felt terrible, as if my previous deeds gave him the right to corner me. I do not know. I am confused." Ryan's expression stiffened. "He has no rights. You've made a mistake. Yes, but that does not give him the right to harass you. Next time, call the cops. Understood?" She nodded. Fresh tears streamed down her cheeks. Understood. Silence extended. Then Heather whispered softly, "Are you? Do you still intend to divorce me?" Ryan gulped. "I haven't decided. I'm building my case and keeping my options open." She lowered her head into her hands. "I despise this. I hate that I created it, but I also despise that Jason is holding us prisoner with his threats. He wants me to protect him, keep my mouth closed. He's concerned that you'll expose him to ultra fear or something." Ryan raised his eyebrows. "That is fascinating. Did he tell you that?" She nodded. "Yeah. He stated that he is aware that you are working with Marissa to damage his career. He believes I might have insider information. He requested that I spy on you." Ryan gave a quick laugh. "Wow. He is desperate. I hope you told him no." Heather bristled. "Of course I did. I am done lying." They met eyes. Tension is thick. Finally, Ryan stated, "If Jason shows up again, I'll handle it. Call both me and the police." Heather nodded and wiped her eyes. "Okay." He stopped before turning to leave, stopping at the door. "Take care of yourself, Heather. I am not doing this for you. I'm doing it because I refuse to let him control any of us." She looked after him, her voice shaking with a simple thank you. 2 days later, an unexpected development occurred. Nick texted Ryan that UltraFit was hosting a private fitness expo event at a local convention hall. Jason was supposed to perform a product demo. Nick's text read, "Dude, Jason is rumored to announce a major fitness brand collaboration at the expo. He seemed to have gotten them on board or very close. This might be your moment to show them the real Jason." Ryan's eyes shone with bitter satisfaction. This could be the perfect opportunity to shatter Jason's veneer. He called Marissa. "Are you ready to disrupt Jason's big moment?" Marissa's voice quivered with nervousness and excitement. "Yes, I have the text messages, voice memos, and everything. If UltraFit spots them." Ryan smirked when the game was ended. "Let's do it. We'll go to the expo corner. The brand representatives need to see who Jason truly is." That Friday afternoon, Ryan and Marissa arrived at the convention center. It was packed with sporting equipment, booths, supplements, stalls, and many stages for workout demonstrations. The Superfit booth loomed huge in the center, with sleek banners of fit models and the brand's tagline, "Pushing limits together," a perfect catchphrase for a scoundrel who tests other women's limits. Ryan's thoughts were grim. They found Jason in the rear, laughing with a small group of brand representatives, dressed in a tight, ultra-fit tank that showed off his chiseled arms. His face was all grins, as captivating as ever, and he appeared to have no problems in the world. Marissa grasped her cell phone. He appeared smug. "I want to knock that smirk from his face." Ryan took a relaxing breath. "We need to be strategic. Let's talk to the representatives, not him. You show them the evidence." Marissa nodded. "Right. I notice a woman wearing a senior brand manager credential. Let us approach her." They made their way through the mob. Jason frowned as he looked at them. Ryan noticed a spark of panic in his eyes. He murmured something to the Raps before approaching them and intercepting. Jason drawled, "Well, if this isn't my favorite duo." "Marissa, you have never been interested in fitness expos, and Ryan, you are more of a desk jockey, correct?" Ryan forced a charming smile. "We're just scoping out the scene. I heard you were making tremendous waves." Jason crossed his arms. Tense posture. "What do you want?" Marissa responded in a voice. "Steady. We would like to congratulate you." "Of course." He narrowed his eyes. "Cut the bullshit. I know you are up to something, attempting to position an ultra-fit against me." Ryan shrugged. Perhaps the truth is poison to someone who has established their brand on lies. Jason moved closer, his voice dropping to a hiss. "Look, you son of a bitch! If you undermine this, Heather will regret ever being with you. I will drag your name through the mud." Ryan's nostrils flared, but he maintained his composure. "Is someone threatening me again?" "What an original idea." Marissa moved between them. Back off. Jason, we are not afraid of your bullying. A representative from Ultra Fit peered over. Jason, intrigued, hastily contrived a grin. I am stepping away. We will finish this later, he murmured. Then he returned to the booth, putting on a phony smile for the cameras. Marissa and Ryan weaved through the crowd to approach the senior brand manager, Alicia Moore. Based on her name badge, she greeted them politely. Marissa's voice quivered slightly, but she pressed on. Hi. Sorry for bothering you. I'm Marissa Carter. I believe your company is looking into signing Jason Carter as a sponsored athlete. Alicia beams. Yes, that is correct. We'll be finalizing specifics soon. He's an amazing trainer. Marissa breathed. He's also my husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, and I'm quite concerned about his interactions with clients. I believe it may reflect negatively on Ultra Fit. Alicia's eyebrows raised. Pardon? Ryan went in. We have recorded evidence that Jason has had several extramarital encounters with his clientele. It's unethical and continuous. If you work with him, you risk linking your brand to predatory behavior. Alicia's expression stiffened. That is a strong allegation. Marissa took out her phone and scrolled swiftly. Would you be willing to view some messages? They are straightforward, yet they leave no doubt. Alicia hesitated and then nodded curtly. Let me see. They huddled to the side, and Marissa displayed a selection of texts from the burner phone. Alicia's eyes widened, her lips narrowing into a scowl. This is very disturbing. Ryan folded his arms. He portrays himself as a healthy fitness role model, but it's all a facade. Alicia scrolled further, cringing at several lines. One read, I enjoy hooking up with these bored spouses. They are easy targets. She looked up with a stern grimace. I can't confirm the veracity of these communications right now, but if they are real, UltraFit cannot work with him. Our brand's ideals include integrity and respect. Marissa nodded, tears welling up. They are real. Check the timestamps, references. He has done this to more than one woman. Jason suddenly observed the three of them gathered together. When he realized what was going on, he raced over, his face twisted with rage. Hey, Alicia, let's not get involved in personal drama, he remarked, attempting a lovely laugh. My estranged wife is simply bitter and making stuff up. Alicia raised a hand. Jason, I'm going to require you to stand aside. I have seen enough. We will need to conduct a thorough examination before finalizing any sponsorships. Jason's countenance shifted from shock to wrath. Are you kidding me? These are lies. She is lying to sabotage me. Ryan made a dry chuckle. Check your phone logs, dude. Or better yet, chat to the half-dozen women you've been dragging along. Jason clenched his hands. You arrogant bastard. Alicia moved between them, face pales. Jason, who is extremely fit, has a strict zero-tolerance policy for unethical behavior. Until this is resolved, we will cease talks. He turned to Alicia, frantic. Wait. I can explain anything. This is a smear campaign. They are blowing up little disagreements. Alicia's voice became hard. We do not do business with trainers involved in scandals. I apologize, but your demonstration has been canceled. We will be in touch. Jason watched in dread as Alicia marched away, phone in hand, likely calling her bosses. The throng around them senses the tension rising. Cameras flashed. Jason, enraged, stared at Ryan and then at Marissa, his face distorted. Do you desire war? You've got it. Ryan smirked. We didn't start this without saying anything else. Jason strode away, dismissing the interested passers-by. Marissa exhaled shakily. Tears of relief mixed with adrenaline. We did it! He is ruined! Ryan gave her a brief nod. And this is simply the beginning. The aftermath of the expo was quick. The local fitness community learned that UltraFit had pulled out of negotiations with Jason due to ethical issues. People murmured about alleged affairs and dodgy deals. Gym owners began to distance themselves from him to prevent negative press. Ryan watched things unfold with a quiet enjoyment. He didn't feel any guilt. Jason caused his own disgrace. Meanwhile, Marissa presented Jason with divorce papers. She texted Ryan triumphantly. He freaked out and vowed to fight me in court. But I have receipts. No way. He wins. Heather attempted to contact Ryan many times, requesting updates on the issue. He gave her few comments, largely regarding Jason's tantrum. Deep down, he wondered if Heather was relieved or saddened by Jason's demise. Ryan was at his apartment late one evening, sifting through more legal documents. A startling knock shocked him. He answered the door to discover Heather with her hair in a sloppy ponytail and a gray hoodie. Her eyes were solemn. "Can I come inside?" He shrugged and stepped aside. "Sure, why not?" She hesitantly entered the living area. "I heard about the expo debacle, Lucy told me." "So it is true. Jason lost his sponsorship." Ryan nodded. "Yep. UltraFit wants nothing to do with him." Heather slumped onto the edge of the little sofa. "I am not surprised. He's been blowing up my phone, complaining about how you and Marissa ruined his life." Ryan pursed his lips. "If he continues to harass you, file a restraining order." She nibbled her lip. "I might listen. I am not here to defend him. I wanted to thank you for making sure he doesn't hurt any other ladies, or me for that matter. Now that he's been trapped, perhaps he'll back off." Ryan leaned against a wall, arms crossed. He may be desperate enough to do something stupid. "Keep an eye on your back." Heather nodded. "I will. And about us, I realize everything is still twisted up, but please know that I am not secretly pulling for Jason. I am on your side." Ryan's expression relaxed slightly. "That's good to hear." She hesitated and swallowed. "I have been thinking about the separation agreement you mentioned. If you decide to divorce me, I will not battle you over the terms. I am deserving. Do whatever you want." He examined her, noting how worn she appeared. "Why the change of heart?" She laughed sadly, since I had spent weeks lying, which had only caused me disgrace. "I am done lying. If you want the house, that's okay. If you want me gone, I'll leave. Ryan, I broke everything. You don't owe me anything." He looked at her in quiet, an unexpected flood of empathy rising. She appeared downtrodden, so unlike the lively lady who had once shone in his life. "Let's not make any foolish decisions tonight," he concluded. "We'll see how things progress." Heather's eyes flickered with a combination of hope and sadness. "Thank you." A few days passed. Ryan received a call from Marissa. She sounded strangely cheerful. "Guess what? I landed a part-time position at a yoga studio. The owner is aware of my situation with Jason and wishes to assist me in resuming my life." Ryan smiled slightly. "That's wonderful, Marissa. Congratulations." She laughed, slightly shy. "It isn't a high-paying job, but it helps pay the bills, and it's nice to be around helpful people. In addition, my lawyer claims Jason is attempting to blame me for being unfaithful." "Can you believe it?" Ryan sighed. "He's desperate, but I doubt it will stick." Marissa paused. "Hello, how are you doing? I understand you are waging your own struggle here." Ryan rubbed his forehead. "Still sorting through evidence, completing things with my attorney, and deciding whether I want to salvage anything with Heather." Her voice softened. "You sound weary." He gave out a humorless chuckle. "I am, but at least I have a plan. I am not walking aimlessly." "Right," she agreed gently. "So, if you need to vent or discuss strategy, you know where to find me." "Thank you," Ryan responded. "This means a lot." Later that week, Ryan stopped by the town's main food store for a few items. He froze when he turned down the fruit aisle. Jason was there, looking haggard. Dark rings appeared under his eyes. He was clothed in sweatpants and searching through apples. Ryan briefly pondered avoiding him, but Jason recognized him right away. Eyes are narrowing. "Ryan," Jason said in a taut voice. "You simply cannot stay out of my life, can you?" Ryan snorted. Funny. I believe it was you that invaded mine. Jason clenched his jaw. You've wrecked my sponsorship. Extremely fit. Dropped me the day after the expo. Now every gym in town is turning me down. All because you and Marissa chose to tell falsehoods. Ryan's eyes turned chilly. These are not lies. These are your own words. You boasted about banging married clientele. You've dug your own grave. People nearby sensed the tension and gently moved their carts away. Jason shoved an apple into the bag, sneering. You must feel quite powerful, but you won't be celebrating if I launch a defamation claim. Ryan rolled his eyes. Go ahead. Discovery will be a blast, unveiling all of your texts and movies. Jason's confidence flickered. He looked away. Frustration was engraved on his face. Then he lowered his voice. Why? I'm not finished with you. I may have lost this round, but I will make sure you pay. And I'll make certain Heather understands what a manipulative prick you are. Ryan's fingers ached to punch him again, but he pushed himself to be calm. Keep threatening me, Jason. It will only strengthen my case if I get a restraining order. Jason leaned in, eyes blazed. Screw you! He spat and brushed past Ryan's shoulders, connecting with them. Ryan did not move, standing firm as Jason moved away. Adrenaline rushed through his veins. Allow him to do his worst. Ryan would not break. Back in the flat. Ryan explained the experience to Nick over the phone. Nick snorted. Guys are spiraling. He's done for. Do not let him get under your skin. Ryan exhaled. I won't. But it's annoying to see him continue to threaten me. Nick's voice softened. Hey, maybe it's time you take a break. You've been on revenge mode for weeks. Take a step back. Look at the big picture. Heather is displaying regret. Jason's career is virtually over. Perhaps you have already won. Ryan halted. Did I win? He thought about it. The outcome was clearly in his favor. Jason's brand had been harmed. Marissa was filed for divorce. Heather was contrite. Maybe, he said, but I'm not finished. I need closure, Nick. I need to follow through legally. Nick sighed. Okay, fair enough. Simply don't lose yourself in the process. The following week, Marissa had a preliminary hearing for her divorce. Ryan supported her by sitting behind her in the small courtroom. Jason was also there. Looks tense. Their lawyers clashed about asset division. There have been allegations of misbehavior. Marissa's lawyer submitted a collection of texts implicating Jason in many affairs. Jason's face flushed as the judge skimmed them. Finally, the judge allowed the case to proceed, stating that there was sufficient proof that Jason had committed marital infidelity. Jason collapsed into his seat, frowning at Marissa and Ryan, following the hearing. Outside in the hallway, Jason again cornered Ryan. You believe you are so righteous. Wait till Heather testifies. She'll have to be honest about how she chose me. She will embarrass you all over again. Ryan's lips curved into a cynical smirk. I honestly don't care. The longer you say, the more pathetic you sound. Marissa tugged on Ryan's sleeve. Let's go. We don't need to elevate this. They walked away, leaving Jason incensed. That evening, Ryan and Heather sat down at the old house's kitchen table. He had come to pick up some paperwork, but they ended up conversing. Heather remarked gently, I need to know where we stand. Hands clasped. Will you complete the divorce or give us a chance? Ryan leaned back and exhaled. I've been considering it. On the one hand, I cannot just forget what happened on the other. You have showed genuine remorse. I see you've tried to cut connections with Jason and make things better. Heather's voice quivered. I will keep trying, whatever it takes. I am not the same person I was when I succumbed to his temptation. I promise. He watched her honest, teary expression. It will take more than promises, Heather. Trust is not rebuilt overnight. She nodded. I understand. But if there is even a chance, I want to fight for us." Ryan sighed. "Let's put off the divorce for now. We'll have a legal separation. Examine whether you follow through on your claims. If I see you hesitating, if Jason even crosses this boundary, I am done." Relief flooded her face. "I understand. Thank you." A few days later, Ryan received a mysterious text from Marissa. "Keep an eye out. Jason is plotting something. He suggested wanting to expose you at an event. Be careful." Ryan frowned at his phone. Suspicion is seeping in. "What precisely are you exposing me for?" "The same day?" Lucy called. "Ryan, according to rumors, Jason has been telling people that you were the reason Heather cheated in the first place, that you were violently abusive. Ignore her needs. He claims to have photos of bruises or something. Isn't it clear that it's a fake?" Ryan gave a contemptuous snort. "Totally phony. I never put a touch on her. He's grabbing for straws." Lucy sighed. Some people may be naive enough to believe him if he tries to express that publicly. Ryan massaged his temples. He can't provide credible proof since it never occurred. He's probably staging something. I will warn Heather. That evening, Ryan and Heather sat on the living room sofa, their first awkward intimacy since their split. He described Jason's suspected plan. Heather's eyes widened with outrage. "How can he accuse you of abuse?" she spit. "That is absurd," Ryan nodded. "Could you please put in writing an official statement that these claims are false? If he attempts to malign me, I can use your evidence." Heather grabbed her phone. "Hell, sure. I will write a statement. I will call Lucy. Nick, anyone who knows us would confirm that you never touched me." Ryan watched her, a strange mix of thankfulness and lingering pain churning through his chest. She defended him with ferocity. Despite this, she had betrayed him before. Still, her instant rejection of Jason's account provided him a glimmer of optimism that she had finally turned a corner. Late that night, Ryan received a text message from an unknown number. "Meet me tomorrow at 8 p.m. in the vacant warehouse behind the old gym. If you want to witness real proof of Heather, come alone." Jay Ryan's blood turned chilly. "He's luring me into a warehouse." He grumbled to himself. That is right out of a lousy film. He considered ignoring it, but curiosity gnawed at him. Was Jason lying about real proof? Did he plan to ambush Ryan? Ryan felt a sluggish determination settle in his gut. If Jason wanted to corner him, then so be it. Ryan had finished running. He only texted back one word: "Fine." Ryan remained on high alert the following day. He informed Nick of Jason's cryptic communication, and Nick insisted on coming as backup. Ryan shakes his head. "He said to come alone. If I bring you, he may bolt." Nick frowned. "I do not like this. He's unstable. It could be a trap." Ryan nodded grudgingly. "I am not stupid. I'll be careful." He slipped a small voice recorder into his jacket pocket along with pepper spray. He had no intention of playing fair if Jason attempted anything rough. At 7:50 p.m., Ryan approached the empty warehouse behind the abandoned gym. Tall, chain-link fences with damaged windows. The sky was deep blue, and only a flickering street lamp provided illumination. He strolled outside, inspecting the surroundings. A single automobile was parked at the side entrance. Jason's vehicle heart was hammering. Ryan approached gently. Phone in hand, prepared to phone 911 if necessary. He entered the warehouse. Footsteps echo. Jason stood in a patch of light cast by a dirty overhead lamp. Arms folded. "You really came?" Jason remarked, his voice filled with hate. Ryan gave him a wary look. "What is this about? Proof?" Jason reached into his blazer and took out a thin manila envelope. Photos. He added, demonstrating, "Heather is a slut for hooking up with not only me, but also others. Are you sure you want to keep that woman?" Ryan clenched his jaw. "She assured me there wasn't anyone else. Show me." Jason gave over the envelope. Ryan glanced through hazy photos of Heather. Some are in the gym while others are in a parking lot, interacting with guys. There is nothing explicitly incriminating, and a few photographs. They were hugging or leaning in, but they were usually oddly oriented, as if photographed from a distance. Ryan frowned. This proves nothing except that she spoke to several guys. Jason shrugged. Perhaps the rest is in my head. Perhaps these men simply haven't stepped forward. But how do you think a judge would react if I said Heather has a tendency of straying? Ryan tossed the envelope into a nearby container. Try it. Heather will deny it, and you have no credible evidence. Jason's smile was wild. I could make more. Get some bodies to say they had a fling with her. She has suffered reputational damage. Your reputation would be enormous. Do you want that? Ryan's temper flared, but he controlled his voice. You are blackmailing me to do what exactly? Jason gestured sarcastically. I want you to end your alliance with Marissa. Stop giving her evidence. Stop assisting her financially. Whatever you are doing, let me save my life. Ryan snorted. So you want me to let you walk freely? And in exchange, you promise not to spread false information about Heather? Jason nodded. Exactly. Because if you keep meddling, I'll tarnish Heather's reputation. She will never recover. She may not care about me, but she will care about that, correct? Ryan clenched his hands. This was the sickest ultimatum ever. You understand you sound desperate? Jason stepped forward with wild eyes. Desperate guys do desperate things, Ryan. Back off or watch Heather burn. Ryan inhaled sharply before reaching inside his pocket. Jason tensed, as if anticipating a weapon. Instead, Ryan tapped the recorder. That was all recorded, moron. Ryan spoke softly. You threatened defamation. Blackmail? Both are criminal. You think a court won't like hearing you declare I'll ruin Heather's name if you don't comply? Jason froze, his face drained of color. You? You set me up. Ryan smirked. I had a hunch you would do something like this. Congratulations. You just gave me more ammunition. Jason's composure snapped. I'll claim you doctored the audio. Ryan shrugged. Go for it. I have phone records, texts, and eyewitnesses to your threats in public. This is only the cherry on top. Good luck spinning it. Jason rushed, reaching for the recorder. Ryan ducked back and thrust his left palm forward, spraying the pepper spray directly into Jason's eyes. Jason howled, clutching at his face. You bastard! He croaked and blinked furiously. Ryan stepped back. Adrenaline surges. He kept the nozzle pointed back. Jason swung blindly and landed a wild blow to Ryan's shoulder. The impact threw Ryan sideways, nearly pushing him into a mound of crates. Ryan steadied himself and raised the pepper spray again. Jason stumbled. Before each man could regain footing, his eyes watered and words poured out of his mouth. They heard sirens. Red and blue lights shone through the dusty warehouse windows. Ryan's lips formed a bitter grimace. I informed a pal where I would be. He threatened to call the cops if I didn't respond to his text within 15 minutes. Jason was too busy gasping from the pepper sting to respond. Seconds afterward, 2 police officers emerged with flashlights, piercing through the darkness. Hands up! Ryan raised his arms casually. I am the victim here, officer. This dude just threatened me with blackmail and assaulted me. One cop approached Jason, who was still writhing from the pepper spray, and forced him against the wall. The other patted Ryan down, making sure there were no weapons other than the spray. The cops separated them and took statements. Ryan gave over the recorder and explained the issue. Jason sputtered. He sprayed me without explanation. Ryan maintained a calm tone. I acted in self-defense when he attempted to seize me. I have everything on audio. One officer listened to a sample on the recorder where Jason threatened to destroy Heather. The officer took a quick peek at Jason. Do you want to clarify that? Jason's face contorted with panic. Look, it's complicated. The cop shakes his head. We'll sort things out at the station. They put Jason in handcuffs and told him his rights. Ryan remained silent as they dragged him away. He felt a sense of relief rush over him at that moment. Jason's outburst had reached a pinnacle, and it culminated in handcuffs. Ryan stood outside his car for an hour, talking on the phone with Nick. "Yes, the police have him. He attacked me after attempting to blackmail me. I'm okay, just a painful shoulder." Nick exhaled. "Damn. You sure you're okay? Better than him. They detained him on charges of assault and blackmail. I will file a restraining order first thing tomorrow." Nick let out a low whistle. "It seems like justice, man. He had it coming." Ryan nodded, but Nick could not see it. "Yep. I believe this will be the final nail in his coffin. No more threats or ambushes." Nick paused. "How about Heather?" Ryan sighed. "I will tell her. She'll probably feel relieved. Let's hope that this means we can all move on." Ryan drove back to the house he formerly shared with Heather. Adrenaline is still coursing through him. He discovered her walking around the living room, phone in hand. She dashed over the instant he stepped inside. "Oh my God, Ryan," she sobbed as she examined him for damage. "Nick told me that you confronted Jason. Are you hurt?" Ryan touched his shoulder and winced. "He landed one punch, but I'm all right. Pepper spray did the most of the work." Heather shivered. "I was frightened he was going to do something terrible. I'm sorry you had to deal with that." He sat with his hand on her arm, startling himself. "It's finished. The cops took him away. I have enough evidence to guarantee he won't bother you again." She gulped deeply, tears welling up. "Thank you. I cannot believe the extent he went to." Ryan lowered his sight. "He attempted blackmail, suggesting he would harm your reputation if I did not back down." Heather paled. "He threatened me." Ryan nodded. "Yes, but he gave me enough rope to hang himself with his own words. I captured everything." She breathed with relief and grief. "I think that's it. He will most likely wind up in prison or with a criminal record." Ryan observed her trembling form. "Are you okay? This must be a lot to handle." She sank into the sofa. "I'm horrified at how far this has gone. I never intended to end lives, but I suppose it was unavoidable. Once we had crossed the line." He dropped himself next her. For a brief while, silence enveloped them, accompanied by a whirl of regret and relief. Finally, Ryan spoke. "Heather, you made a bad mistake, but Jason took it to the next level. I'm sorry he dragged you through." "Hell with him." She bit her lip. Tears streamed down. "So, what happens to us now?" He looked at the floor, the question reverberating in his mind. "I am not sure, but we are no longer living in Jason's shadow. That is a start." They sat together side by side. The tension in the house is dissipating. Heather eventually rested her head on Ryan's shoulder, gingerly, as if seeking comfort but unsure whether she deserved it. Ryan led her to remain there, feeling the weight of it all, just once, wash over him. He did not push her away. He wasn't ready to call it reconciliation, but it was a moment of fragile serenity. They'd reached a tipping point. Jason's threat was neutralized. His brand was soiled and his illusions were broken. Ryan could decide the fate of his marriage. Heather sniffled and whispered, "Thank you." Ryan closed his eyes. "Do not thank me yet. We have a long journey ahead of us, but at least for tonight." They had a little respite from the turmoil. The morning sunlight streamed through Heather's living room windows, where she and Ryan had fallen off in an unpleasant half-sleep. Ryan was the first to move, gently shifting as Heather startled awake alongside him. Neither had intended to fall asleep on the couch, but the emotional weariness had left them both weary. He stretched every muscle that had been strained since yesterday night's altercation with Jason. "Morning." He spoke softly, his voice hoarse. Heather sat up and adjusted her wrinkled hoodie. "Morning. How is your shoulder?" "It's little sore," Ryan admitted while rotating it. "But I will live." She nodded and lowered her gaze. "I'm very sorry about everything." He looked at her for a time, thinking how she had stayed with him worried after Jason's arrest. A little warmth flowed between them. "We'll deal with that," he remarked while standing. "First things first, I should call the precinct and find out what the next steps are." Heather slid her legs underneath the covers. "A good idea. Should I come with you?" Ryan paused. "Allow me to do it alone. I will fill you in." Heather gave him a modest, sympathetic nod. The tenuous calm between them felt frail but substantial, like a crystal ornament that could shatter with a single incorrect move. Later that morning, Ryan went to the local police station. The lobby's fluorescent lights hummed as he approached the front desk. He shared his name. "I inquired about Jason's status." A uniformed cop inspected his PC. "Jason Carter was arrested last night on charges of assault, attempted blackmail. He was released on bail a few hours ago." Ryan's brow was already wrinkled. The cop shrugged. He posted bail. "There will be a hearing in a few days. If you want a restraining order, you can start the process right away." Ryan breathed, stress twisting in his stomach. Jason went out again. "All right," he replied firmly. "Let's do it. A restraining order." Ryan told a different officer about Jason's threats. He submitted the audio tape as proof and filled out paperwork. By the end, he was exhausted. However, a sense of relief appeared. Jason couldn't lawfully approach him or Heather without facing jail time. That afternoon, Heather walked the living room, phone in hand, bracing herself. She called her parents' number. She hadn't told them the whole story, only that her marriage was on the rocks and she'd made serious mistakes. When the phone call came in, she spoke softly to her mother. "It's me. I need to tell you something essential." Her mother's worried voice cracked through the phone. "Heather, honey? What is going on? You sound upset." Heather swallowed, summoning courage. "I cheated on Ryan, and the man I was engaged with proved to be dangerous. It has been a nightmare, Mom. Ryan and I may still get divorced, but I'm trying so hard to mend what I damaged." There was astonished quiet on the other end of the line. Heather heard her mother murmur, "Oh, honey, why?" Heather felt tears well up in her eyes. "I do not know. I felt neglected and lonely, but it is no justification. And now another man has been arrested for threatening Ryan. It's a mess." Her mother breathed shakily. "I'm very sorry, darling. Does Ryan still love you?" Heather cast a glance into the kitchen, where Ryan was looking for a food. "I'm not sure, but he hasn't closed the door fully on me. He is cautious. We're caught in this strange limbo." They talked for a few more minutes, with her mother offering support but anguish in every word. Heather ended the call feeling a little lighter. At least the truth was out in the open. That same day, Ryan invited Heather to meet him at Jennifer Brooks's legal office. The tension between them was evident as they sat side by side in front of Jennifer's enormous oak desk. Jennifer clasped her hands. Ryan: "Heather, thank you both for coming. It is critical that we clarify the legal way. Ryan first pushed a divorce plan, but you stated you're reconsidering." Ryan nodded slowly. "Yes. Given the revisions and Heather's cooperation, I haven't made a final decision. I still want a legal separation to preserve my assets and establish limits." Heather spoke forward, her voice soft yet clear. "I accept it. If Ryan need a separation agreement, I am willing to sign one." Jennifer looked between them. "All right, I can prepare a separation agreement with conditions that reflect your new viewpoint. Ryan, you have the right to file a full divorce at any moment, but this provides you time to determine whether reconciliation is actually possible." Ryan sighed, feeling a knot release in his chest. "That's all I want for now." Jennifer nodded. "That will be finalized shortly. Also, if the DA need your testimony or evidence in connection with Jason Ryan's allegations, I suppose you are prepared." Ryan's eyes tightened. "Absolutely. We have audio recordings of his threats as well as texts from Marissa," Heather added quietly. "If necessary, I will also testify. I want to do the correct thing." Jennifer gave a strained smile. Good. Then let us proceed. Over the next few days, reports surfaced that Jason, who was out on bond, was trying to find new clients in a nearby county where news of his controversy might not have spread as quickly. Nick communicated this information to Ryan over the phone. Ryan snorted. He never learns Nick's perspective. Yes, but he has a hearing soon. Perhaps he wants to make a quick cash before the law closes him down. Ryan felt a jolt of rage. I'd like to know whether he's deliberately ignoring the restraining order, Nick assured him. Do not worry. I focused on the gym atmosphere. If he comes close to you or Heather, I'll let you know. Ryan attempted to focus on restoring trust with Heather, but he couldn't shake the fear that Jason might return to their life like a snake creeping through tall grass. Marissa contacted Ryan on a crisp Saturday morning. Hi, how are you doing? Better, Ryan responded honestly. I am making progress. She let out a trembling sigh. I'm completing my divorce from Jason. He has not reacted to the settlement offer. My lawyer is convinced that if he fails to appear in court, we can default him. Ryan's eyebrows rose. Do you think he will skip out? Marissa paused. He might. He's arrogant enough to believe he can outrun this, but it will only make matters worse for him. Good, Ryan said bluntly. He deserved worse. She exhaled. I agree. Anyway, I wanted to thank you. Without your assistance, I would not have had the bravery or evidence to stand up to him. Ryan experienced a burst of empathy. We helped each other. I am delighted you are getting away from him. They parted on a hopeful note. It was bizarre to form a friendship with Marissa through mutual betrayal and revenge. But in this bizarre situation, they'd discovered solidarity. Heather started making small adjustments around the house, such removing framed images of her and Jason at the gym. Ryan had no idea they existed, and they were removing all traces of her previous relationship. She even changed the master bedroom, hoping that the new look would alleviate memories of covertly texting Jason from that bed. Ryan saw her attempts one evening while they were discussing routine bills and errands. Heather admitted quietly, I'm trying to make this home feel safe again for you and for both of us. He appreciated the gesture. Thank you, he murmured softly. It does help. For the time being, they slept in separate rooms, but the mood was less frigid, and the early distrust had subsided. However, the wound was far from cured. A week passed with no sign of Jason. Then one afternoon, Ryan heard the doorbell ring among the crowd. He noticed a stern-looking woman in a pencil skirt holding a briefcase. He opened the door warily. Yes, she presented a business card. My name is Angela Perez. I am a private investigator hired by Mr. Jason Carter's attorney. Ryan's pulse quickened. What do you want? She gave a measured smile. Just some basic questions about your altercation with Mr. Carter. I would like to chat with you and your wife. Heather. Voices erupted from the living room. She froze at the threshold. Angela continued. Mr. Carter says there was a misunderstanding, that you entrapped him and used pepper spray without cause. I am gathering statements. Ryan's face clouded. Jason attacked me first. We've got a restraining order. He's not supposed to make contact. Angela nodded easily. I am only doing my job. If you refuse to cooperate, it is your right. But your denial will be documented in my report. Heather, fists clenched, spoke up. We've got an audio recording. Jason threatened to blackmail Ryan and myself. There is no misunderstanding. Angela took a polite step backward. Perhaps we will let the courts decide. Here's my card in case you change your mind. She handed over a crisp white card and left without further discussion. Heather looked at her. He's really reaching for straws now, sending a P.I. Ryan's side. Allow him to try. He will dig himself deeper. Days later, Ryan and Heather appeared at the county courthouse to attend Jason's pretrial hearing on assault and blackmail allegations. Marissa was also there. She sat on a wooden bench in the hallway, her lawyer by her side, as the hearing began. Jason's counsel attempted to characterize Ryan as an aggressive who ambushed Jason using claimed audio editing. However, the prosecutor pushed back, producing phone records, text messages, and the unedited recording. Heather took the stand briefly. Jason's voice was wobbly but firm, proving that he had threatened them both and was known for manipulating conduct. She described the night he pushed her to ditch her automobile. Jason, sitting at the defense table, glared at Heather with undisguised hatred. Marissa sat behind the prosecutor, arms folded and unyielding. Finally, the judge denied Jason's motion to dismiss charges. A complete trial date was scheduled. Jason stormed out of the courtroom, ignoring the calls of his own attorney. Outside, Marissa approached Ryan and Heather. "He's furious. Be careful." Ryan's expression remained unwavering. "We will." With the restraining order in effect, he has limited options. After the complete trial, he might be imprisoned. Heather drew a nervous breath. He had done enough harm that evening at their residence. Ryan discovered Heather seated at the dining table, staring at a half-finished dinner. She pushed the dish away, tears running down her face. He approached quietly, resting one hand on the chair. "Heather, what is wrong?" She shakes her head. "Tears are streaming freely now. I have just been thinking. Everything I did set this entire horror in motion. The guilt is strangling me. Even though Jason is accountable for his own conduct, I played a role. I allowed him inside." Ryan's chest constricted. "Yeah," he confessed calmly. "Did you? But you've been working to make apologies." She looked up, her eyes raw. "Is that enough? Will you look at me the same way again?" He breathed deeply. "I do not know, honestly, but I am not closing the door on us. That is something." A hesitant smile spread across her face. "It is, and that is all I can ask for." For a minute, they simply breathed. The house. It was quiet around them. They were walking a fine line between healing and heartbreak. In the weeks running up to Jason's trial, there was an unexpected calm in Ryan and Heather's lives. No fresh confrontations or threats. The private investigator never returned. Jason's lawyers must have concluded that the blackmail claim was a dead end. Heather went on to see a therapist to work through her remorse and figure out why she had strayed in the first place. She'd gently invite Ryan to join a session, even if he wasn't quite ready. Meanwhile, Ryan kept the temporary flat but found himself spending more nights at home. One Friday evening, he looked around and realized he'd returned numerous suits to the bedroom closet. It felt oddly appropriate. Nick and Lucy extended an invitation for a little supper at their home to celebrate the fact that the tension had subsided. They made a pleasant lunch, complete with a bottle of red wine. Heather was anxious as she stepped into Nick's living room, knowing how the previous large party ended in public humiliation, but Lucy welcomed her with a hearty hug. "I'm glad you're here," Lucy murmured quietly. Her eyes shone with sincerity. Over dinner, they talked about lighter things like movies, local happenings, future goals, and a sense of normalcy. Touch the air. Ryan's gaze occasionally flickered with grief, but he kept it at away while they sipped wine on the couch. Lucy sought an opportunity to pull Ryan aside. "You appear calmer. Dare I say, happier?" Ryan gave a light nod. "I am, or at least feel less irritated. I've recognized that I can't reverse what happened, but I can choose how to proceed." Lucy softly patted his arm. "Whatever happens, we'll be there for you both." The next day, Marissa called, her voice full of relief. "Ryan, guess what? My divorce from Jason is officially over." He declined to contest it. "The court granted me a compensation. Small, but fair. I am free." Ryan's lips curved into a grin. "That is great news." "Congratulations!" She gave out a teary laugh. "Thank you. And what about his assault trial?" I'll testify if they need me, but otherwise I'm done allowing him to dictate my life. Ryan nodded, but she could not see it. Exactly. Move on. Find peace. You deserved it. Marissa paused. You both, Ryan. I wish you well. And I hope you and Heather find the greatest root, whether together or separately. He muttered. We are getting there. They exchanged goodbyes. A sense of closure surrounds their unusual partnership. One afternoon, Ryan discovered Heather in the garage looking through old boxes of shared memories, photos, postcards, and vacation treasures. She bought a framed photo of them at a beach resort, smiling in the sunset. I'm wondering if we can get back to it, she whispered. Ryan swallowed hard and stepped closer. It was the best trip, he said quietly. We were unstoppable. She looked up. We can't take away the pain, but perhaps we can create something new. He paused. Emotions are swirling. It will not be the same as previously, but that may be fine. They did not kiss or embrace passionately, but there was mutual understanding. The way remained unknown, but a cautious hope shone through. Finally, Jason's trial date arrived. Ryan and Heather, dressed in somber apparel, travel quietly to the courts. Marissa sat with them in the waiting area. Jason appeared with his lawyer, face determined. Wearing a poor suit, his once confident swagger gone. He caught sight of them, sneered, and said nothing. The trial started with opening statements. The prosecution presented the audio recording transcripts and sworn affidavits. Jason's lawyer attempted to claim that everything was staged or mutually aggressive, but the evidence revealed a disturbing story of threats, blackmail, and an attack in the warehouse. When Ryan took the stand, his voice was clear. In recounting the night in the warehouse, he played a piece of the audio for the courtroom, the tinny echo of Jason shouting, "I'll destroy Heather's name if you don't back down." The jury's reaction was revealing. Uneasy frowns, casting a few glances at Jason. Jason's lawyer tried to poke holes. Is it true that you went there loaded with pepper spray expecting violence? Ryan maintained the lawyer's stare. I went there when Jason summoned me with a threat. I carried non-lethal protection in case he became violent, which he did. The lawyer struggled. Heather was next. She described Jason's intimidation, referring to the night she abandoned her car. She was on the verge of crying, but she remained calm. Prosecutor. Did Jason ever physically harm you? Heather? He grabbed me once. They tried to keep me from leaving the car, but largely by verbal threats and emotional manipulation. Prosecutor. Have you seen him threaten Ryan? Heather? Yes. He told me that he had blackmailed both of us. If Ryan did not agree with his demands, it would ruin my reputation. Jason's lawyer attempted to undercut her credibility by mentioning her affair. You admitted that you cheated on your husband with my client. Aren't you just blaming him to save face? Heather gulped hard. Yes, I cheated. Every day I have regrets. However, this does not change what Jason did. I ended our affair, and he refused to let it go. Her direct honesty echoed throughout the courtroom. The prosecution emphasized Jason's habit of manipulation, including exploiting married women, blackmailing them, and attacking Ryan. Jason's defense attempted to portray the incident as a misunderstanding caused by jealousy and anger, but the recordings and protective order overpowered any weak argument. The judge issued final instructions. The jury retired to deliberate. Ryan, Heather, and Marissa sat outside in uncomfortable silence. Nick and Lucy stopped by for moral support. After a few hours, the jury returned. Ryan's heart beat as they entered. The foreperson stood, reading the verdict. Jason was found guilty of both attempted blackmail and assault. A wave of muted relief swept through the courtroom. Jason's face paled, and his shoulders slumped. The judge established a sentence date and instructed Jason to remain in detention. His lawyer's expression was bleak. Heather closed her eyes and exhaled shakily. Ryan softly caressed her arm, and their eyes met in a moment of mutual relief. Marissa pushed her lips together, tears in her eyes. Finally, it ended in the parking lot. Nick clapped Ryan on the back. "You did it, man! He's finished!" Ryan gave a shaky laugh. "We did it!" Marissa finally flashed a modest, thankful smile. "Now I can actually move on. No more nightmares." "Heather," she said, "step toward Ryan, and maybe we can too." He took in a breath, looking out at the clear skies. "Yeah, we will see." As they parted ways, a calm sense of triumph mixed with undertones of grief. Jason had lost all he had planned for, and the court system had acknowledged the reality. Ryan and Heather stood on the brink of a new beginning, free of Jason's shadow, in the weeks following the verdict. The entire incident felt like a faraway storm that had eventually passed. The emotional wreckage had yet to be cleared, but the threat was no longer present. Ryan found himself closing the door to his temporary flat. He had paid out the previous month, but no longer slept there. He spent the most of his nights at home, but he did occasionally sleep on the couch. Heather quietly respected his boundaries. She didn't press for quick romance, instead working on re-establishing trust. Heather's parents arrived from out of town one by one on Friday. They asked Ryan and Heather to dine at a charming Italian restaurant. Heather was clearly nervous. She was aware that her parents were unhappy, but also relieved that the problem had been addressed over plates of pasta and garlic bread. Her father broke the ice. "Ryan, I'd like to apologize for everything you've been through." Heather explained the essentials. "We understand how awful this must have been." Ryan placed his fork down and nodded slowly. "Thank you for understanding. It's been difficult, but we're working through it." Heather's mother reached for her hand. "We are glad that you stood up to the man who was threatening you, and we appreciate it. Ryan is willing to give you a chance." Heather's gaze flicked to Ryan, full with thanks. "I still have plenty to make up for," she said quietly. Ryan took a sip of water. "We'll handle it as best we can." For the first time in a long time, they felt warm as they enjoyed a dinner free of distrust and anger. Over the next few days, an unspoken bond began to reignite. Ryan noticed Heather humming in the kitchen one morning wearing an old t-shirt of his. The place brought up recollections of better times. He joined her, stepping back softly. She tensed, uncertain, but relaxed as he slid an arm around her waist. Only for a moment. "Hey," he muttered. She turned, her eyes filled with fluttering hearts. "Hi." No passionate love scene followed, just a soft stillness. The power of their past love flared beneath the surface. Ready to be fostered if they both dared. Marissa messaged Ryan. "Jason, sentencing is scheduled for next week. I plan to attend just to finish." "Are you going?" Ryan thought about it. "Yes, I too desire that closure." Heather, reading over his shoulder, nodded. "If that's okay, I'll go as well." Ryan paused and finally agreed. "Yes, it is also part of your story." The day arrived in court. The judge reviewed the pre-sentencing reports. Jason stood between two officers, looking disheartened. He wore a crumpled dress shirt with unkempt hair. The judge detailed Jason's misdeeds: blackmail, threats, assault on Ryan, repeated harassment. The defense argued for leniency, citing stress and emotional upheaval. The prosecutor responded, alleging several victims and manipulative tactics. Finally, the court issued Jason's punishment, which included 1 year in county jail for the assault and blackmail. Heather bit her lip, feeling a strange combination of sorrow and vindication as they filed out. Jason was taken away in handcuffs. He did not even look at them. Perhaps shame eventually brought him down outside. Marissa leaned against a pillar, tears falling silently. "I didn't expect to cry, but it's so final." Ryan nodded and placed his hand on her shoulder. "It's okay. You dedicated years of your life to him." She sniffed. "Yes, a big error, but at least I can rebuild." Heather gave a timid half-smile. "We can all go on, I hope." Marissa agreed. Yes, you both. You have the opportunity to fix what was broken. I am rooting for you. They exchanged cordial farewells, a last sense of closure, binding them for the night. Ryan and Heather sat on the living room couch where they had earlier felt so alienated. However, the stress was replaced by a tingling quiet of potential. Heather folded her knees beneath her and looked at Ryan with a vulnerable light in her eyes. He is actually gone now. We no longer have to look over our shoulders. Ryan nodded. True. There are no more lingering threats. She liked her lips, and her voice shook. So what about us? Are we going to complete our divorce or try? He grabbed for her hand, his heart racing. I've been thinking about it every day. A part of me wanted to terminate things. The moment you betrayed me. Another portion. Perhaps the strongest portion. We kept recalling who we were before everything went awry. Tears formed in her eyes. Do you still love me? He swallowed and searched her face. Heather, I will always care about you. Love is tricky. But yes, I believe we can find our way back. It will not be easy. I need time to trust again. She nodded vigorously. I understand. I'll give you all the time you need, and I'll do my best to be the partner you deserve. Ryan's chest felt a little heated. It wasn't the all-consuming fervor of early love, but it was something very fragile and worthy of fostering. A week later, at Heather's gentle coaxing, Ryan agreed to a couples therapy session, which he had long avoided. They sat on a comfy sofa in a small office with pastel-colored walls. Grace, a qualified counselor, is attentively listening. Grace smiled warmly. I understand you both went through a difficult experience with infidelity and outside threats. The question is, how can we re-establish your emotional bond? Ryan spoke first, surprised himself with his honesty. We had lost trust, but I see how she has changed. How sorry she is. I'm just frightened of getting wounded again. Heather gripped his fingers. And I'm afraid I'll never convince him. I'm not going to mess up, but I am determined. Grace nodded. Guide them through communication exercises, discussing triggers and boundaries. They left the session feeling fatigued but hopeful, as if they had taken the first true step toward genuine healing. Ryan discovered Heather in the backyard, watering the small herb garden they had planted together years ago. He walked outside, seeing how the evening light framed her figure. She smiled gently at him. Remember how proud you were that these herbs survived our haphazard watering routine? He chuckled and stepped closer. I do. We previously made fresh pesto using these leaves. It was the best meal we made together. Heather set down her watering can. We could do it again someday. A moment of quiet. Then, on impulse, Ryan moved in and brushed his lips on hers. Just a soft, cautious kiss. She halted in astonishment and responded gently. It was like tasting recollections of a life they almost lost, but may still recapture when they separated. Her eyes gleamed with tears. Thank you, she muttered. He stroked her cheek. I want to try, no matter how difficult it is. We owe ourselves that. Over the next few weeks, they allowed themselves to be a couple again. The separation agreement remained in effect as a precautionary measure. However, trust was gradually re-established day by day. They laughed, occasionally shared old inside jokes, and approached daily life with a renewed respect for openness. Heather no longer locked her phone or masked her location. Ryan, though still cautious, began to relax the protective walls around his heart. The house felt warmer, less haunted by secrets. Of course, the memory of betrayal persisted, but it no longer defined them. They stood side by side. I'm in the kitchen preparing dinner. Ryan is chopping vegetables. Heather stirs a simmering sauce. They exchanged a gentle smile, aware of how far they had come. They were not fixed. Not by a long shot, but they were recovering. Months slipped by. The legal dust had settled. Jason was serving time. Marissa had completely moved on, and the scandal that once shook Ryan's world had faded into local gossip history. Ryan and Heather continued their therapy. The counselor's guidance assists them in having honest conversations about intimacy, communication, and shared goals. They gradually rediscovered parts of each other that had been buried beneath resentment. Ryan returned to his tech firm with full focus, resuming the promising career path he had temporarily put on hold. His co-workers noted that he appeared calmer and more grounded, though a few longtime friends saw faint shadows of pain behind his eyes. Heather resumed her freelance interior design projects, re-establishing trust with clients who had previously whispered about her personal drama. She was open with Ryan about her schedule and would occasionally invite him to see her design progress. A year had passed since the fateful Halloween party, and the anniversary was on both of their minds. Heather proposed an idea rather than allowing it to be a sad day. She discovered Ryan in the kitchen one morning sipping coffee. Nervously, she cleared her throat. "So the big Halloween party is coming up again. Nick and Lucy are hosting. I was asked if we'd come, but I know it holds some deep memories." Ryan's face tightened. "Yes, you can say that?" She moved closer. "What if we created new memories? We do not have to dress as Catwoman or Phantom, perhaps something silly like Frankenstein or Bride of Frankenstein. Then we can reclaim the night." He observed her earnest expression. "Do you really want to see that scene again?" Heather shrugged, half smiling. "I want to show everyone that we survived together and are trying to move forward." Ryan sat down with his mug processing. He then gave a slow, thoughtful nod. "Okay, let's do it. But no catsuits," he joked. Heather released a relieved laugh, eyes gleaming with gratitude. "Deal." On Halloween night, they arrived at Nick's house. This time, the decorations were even more extravagant. Smoke machines, giant inflatable monsters, and a DJ playing upbeat music. Ryan dressed as Frankenstein's monster, with a blocky foam forehead and green face paint. Heather donned a whimsical bride costume with streaked hair. They entered arm in arm, nerves tingling. Lucy squealed and hugged them both. "You look amazing. Thank you for attending." "I understand how emotional this must be." Ryan exchanged glances with Heather. "We decided to own it," he stated simply. Nick clapped Ryan's shoulder. "I'm proud of you, man. Let us have a good time. There is no drama this year. Promise." As they moved through the same living room where Ryan had punched Jason, Heather teased Ryan about his stiff Frankenstein walk, and he hammed it up for comedic effect, eliciting laughter from onlookers. They sipped drinks, talked to neighbors, and accepted compliments on their costumes. They could feel a tangible shift all around them. There will be no more whispered pity or pointed looks. People treated them like a couple. Again, not a spectacle. Later that night, as the party wound down, they slipped out to the front porch for some fresh air. Heather inhaled the crisp autumn scent while leaning against the railing. Ryan stood beside her, looking at the neighborhood lights. "It's crazy how different this feels from last year," he reflected. Heather nodded and swallowed hard. "I'm grateful we got here." She paused, then gently added, "Sometimes I still wake up in the night, terrified you're gone or that I've ruined everything forever. But then I remembered how you stayed." Ryan's gaze softened. "I stayed because you demonstrated genuine contrition and commitment to improve. It isn't ideal, but you've shown that you want to work with us." She blinked back tears. "I do. More than everything." He gently grabbed for her hand. "Then let's keep pushing forward." Day by day in therapy that following week, Grace urged them to explore a symbolic fresh start, perhaps a quick retreat or some gesture to mark turning the page. They planned a weekend excursion to a picturesque cabin near a lake a few hours away. No elaborate itinerary, simply time together, unplugged around a crackling fireplace. They reminisced about their early dates, their little jokes, how they once got lost on a hiking trail and found a hidden waterfall. They prepared simple dinners and watched the sunset in companionable stillness. Heather spoke gently one evening while wrapped in blankets on the balcony. "I know we can't change the past, but can we continue to construct something better?" Ryan slipped one arm around her shoulders. "Yes. As long as we are honest with one another, I believe we can." They reconnected with Jennifer Brooks after returning from the cabin. Ryan scheduled this meeting to make a final decision on the separation arrangement. Jennifer greeted them cordially. "So how do things stand now?" Heather looked at Ryan, who nodded. She spoke first. "We have determined that we do not want a divorce. We want to cancel the separation agreement and continue therapy together." Jennifer smiled. "That is good news. As your attorney, I will do whatever you ask. Are you certain?" Ryan nodded firmly. "Yes, we both want it." Heather grabbed his hand. "We'll still be cautious. Maintain open communication, and if something changes, we understand our alternatives. For the time being, however, we have decided to remain married." Jennifer made a note. "I am pleased for you." Before closing that chapter of their lives permanently, Ryan and Heather decided to pay a visit to Marissa, who had been through a similar ordeal. Marissa welcomed them to her modest but pleasant new flat. She wore yoga leggings and a casual hoodie with her hair tied back. "You two look good," she said. "I am genuinely pleased." Heather gave a sweet smile. "We would want to thank you. Without your assistance against Jason, we could still be living under his threats." Marissa waved it off. "We all helped one another. Anyway, how is your married life going now?" Ryan exchanged a look with Heather, and a pleasant warmth spread between them. "Still working on it. But we have decided to stay together." Marissa beams. "I am delighted you overcome so much. Keep at it." They spoke over tea, reflecting on the tortuous journey. Marissa intended to increase her yoga instruction, perhaps open a little studio. Heather offered to help with the space design when the time came. As they parted, there was a shared sense of serenity, a last untying of the cords that had previously tied them in betrayal and anger. Time moved on. Ryan and Heather discovered a new rhythm, one built on deeper connection. They'd make mistakes and old wounds would resurface, but they dealt with disagreements honestly, rather than hiding. On a mild spring afternoon, they lounged in the backyard. The herbs in their modest garden had blossomed once more. Basil and rosemary. Mint. Heather cut a few leaves and handed them to Ryan. He smiled, ready to try that homemade pesto again. She chuckled softly and moved in to kiss his cheek. "Absolutely. Let's do it correctly this time." And in that quiet moment, surrounded by the soothing hum of life, they recognized they had discovered something new and valuable. A marriage forged in flames, tested by betrayal and vengeance, but holding firm in its frail regeneration. They were under no notion that everything was wonderfully flawless. However, each day they chose to trust in the potential of healing. Cheating had broken them, but not destroyed them. And while they prepared supper in a lie-free home, they celebrated the modest successes that came from fighting for each other in the aftermath of unspeakable pain. Because in the end, the finest retribution for betrayal was to find joy and power together. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, leave a comment below to share your thoughts